In the ancient era, there was one who called himself the Burier of Bones, a being who specialized in collecting the corpses of others. It was said that wherever the Burier appeared, a storm of blood and slaughter was sure to follow. Su Zimo said calmly. But after the end of the ancient age, through the Middle Eras until now, no one has heard that name again. The Burier of Bones, the undying sage monarch, said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign gravely. They were both of the sage monarch realm, yet the pressure radiating from this old man made even him feel small. It was as though the man sitting there had merged with heaven and earth itself, his Tao utterly complete. His title Undying means exactly that. He cannot die, said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. It said he cultivated the undying scripture, which allows reincarnation across lifetimes. Each time his life ends, he begins anew. Far beyond your own reincarnation technique, Su Zimo added with a faint smile. Then the question is, said Moonlight Fairy, ever the realist, do we fight or run? Even as a Saint Sovereign, facing the old man, she felt an insurmountable sense of dread. Do you think you can run? The old man chuckled from his perch atop the sand dune. He slowly lifted his fishing rod and smiled. The fish have taken the bait. Fishing? In a desert? Moonlight Fairy asked. I'm fishing for you, the old man replied, shaking his head. I don't back down before a fight, Su Zimo said, smiling. Let's do this. Powerful primal Tao energy erupted around the three. Moonlight Fairy's primal Tao was ice. The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign's primal Taos were dual in nature, one of wind, the other a mutation of the primal Tao of light, the Violet Mist primal Tao. Neither was strictly superior to the other. It simply suited him more. Even as the three surrounded him, the old man remained utterly calm, slowly coiling his fishing line as if nothing in the world concerned him. Fight! The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign roared, unleashing his true fate. Behind him blazed a radiant purple sun. Purple mist rises in the east. Once it sets in the west, it shall never return. The Violet Mist primal Tao flowed like a river of violet mist, swirling around the saint before coiling into a great dragon that charged toward the old man. The old man merely raised his eyes. From them shot two beams of blood-red light. In an instant, the violet dragon was swallowed by the blood glow, twisting violently within the void. The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign realized with alarm that his own primal Taos were slipping out of his control. Not bad talent, the old man said mildly. But you've just broken through, haven't you? Your foundation is still unstable. Enough of that detached sage act. The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign shouted, fury flashing in his eyes. Even if I die here today, I'll make sure to take a piece of your flesh. He fused his Wind Primal Tao and Violet Mist Primal Tao together. The purple sun behind him blazed brighter than ever. Within that sun, the power of an apocalyptic storm spun wildly, forming a world of raging winds that devoured spatial turbulence itself. Outside, the radiant purple light hung high in the heavens, casting brilliance across the world. Your Violet Mist Primal Tao is mediocre, the old man commented. But your mastery of wind is superb. The one who first created that technique must have been one of the ancients, a true pioneer. Even he, for all his strength, could not speak of the ancient gods without respect. The purple sun began its descent, slow yet suffused with suffocating might. The entire sky cracked apart under its weight. The shockwaves tore the void to shreds. Afraid the old man might escape, Moonlight Fairy also revealed her true fate. A luminous moon rose high in the heavens. Even though it was broad daylight, when the moon ascended, darkness swept across the world. Only that brilliant moon stood, bright and eternal. Frozen palace of cold moon. Moonlight Fairy looked like a goddess descending from the heavens. Clad in white, she stepped through the air, ribbons of frost swirling around her. Each step she took shattered layers of glacial light, until the entire sky seemed sealed beneath an ocean of ice. The moon above transformed into a palace of frost, descending directly onto the old man and sealing him within. Not bad, the old man said with his ever-present smile. The moon as your core, ice as your primal Tao. Your potential is limitless. Save your compliments until you've survived this. The violet mist Saint Sovereign snorted coldly. His purple sun finally struck. The old man slowly raised his hand. Power surged through his frail frame. His robe fluttered in the storm. He lifted a single finger. At that motion, heaven and earth roared in unison. When he moved, the world itself seemed to move with him. The might of the cosmos gathered in one finger. Smoke rose straight from the desert. The endless sands raged into the sky. That single finger grew vast beyond measure, piercing through the purple sun, shattering the sky, and extinguishing the moon. The violet mist Saint Sovereign stood dumbstruck, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly. This. He couldn't speak, couldn't even find words to describe what he had just witnessed. This is what a sage monarch truly is. Even an infinite Tao cultivator might not reach such strength. Child, the old man chuckled, shaking his head. You've never seen the absolute power of an infinite Tao. You're still far from it. To die at the hands of someone like you, no regrets then, the violet mist Saint Sovereign said with a bitter smile. I just didn't expect that our feud with the heavenly court would alarm the holy progenitor himself. As the ruler of the heavenly court, the holy progenitor's name was like the eternal sun, immortal through the ages. Since ancient times, he had been the one to preach the Tao to the 9 heavens. For countless generations, he had not emerged. Though the violet mist Saint Sovereign had clashed with the heavenly court, it had been nothing more than stealing a few things from the paradise of gods. He hadn't thought such a minor grudge would draw the patriarch's personal attention, let alone send such a terrifying being. Child, you flatter yourself? The old man said with a soft laugh. I'm not here for you too. Then who? The violet mist Saint Sovereign asked instinctively, then immediately realized the answer. Both he and Moonlight Fairy turned toward Su Zimo. If not for them, then it could only be because of the ancient demon race. The old man's eyes also shifted to Su Zimo. Smiling faintly, he said, When the holy progenitor told me, I almost didn't believe it. The infernal lord, after 1,000 lifetimes of reincarnation, you've returned once more. Truly remarkable. Not even high heaven himself could kill you. And yet you still came, Su Zimo said quietly. Do you think yourself greater than high heaven? I'm nothing more than a speck of dust beneath it, the old man said with a shake of his head and a small smile. I've heard your legends, but I never saw your era with my own eyes. To finally meet you today, my regret is gone. So, you came here to kill me? Su Zimo asked. The undying sage monarch's words were not wrong. The demon descent era belonged to the primordial times, while the sage monarch had risen in the age that followed. The difference between the two was vast. Much had long since been buried under the dust of history. The old man smiled and nodded. He reached out his right hand and grabbed a handful of sand from the ground. In this desert, everything was scarce except sand. The coarse grains flowed through his fingers until, at last, only a single grain remained in his palm. If this were that ancient era when the ancient demons descended, perhaps before you I would have been as insignificant as a grain of sand. But your age has long since passed. The world has forgotten you. And now, in my eyes, you are no more than this grain. You're wrong, Su Zimo replied evenly. In the endless river of time, who can say what is certain? You, the old man said with a sigh. Why didn't you just stay quietly in your endless sea of nothingness and live out your remaining years? Why stir up this chaos again? As the Burier of Bones, if I can bury the infernal lord of the past with my own hands, I will die with no regrets, said the undying sage monarch, shaking his head. That is my only purpose here. Not for hatred, only for fulfillment. Whether or not you'll find peace, I can't say, Su Zimo replied, clapping his hands. But I can promise you this, you won't leave here with your honor intact. As his words fell, the swirling sandstorm around them shifted, and several figures wreathed in infernal energy emerged from the haze. Among them were Paimon, Seven-Face, Red Blade Bull Demon, and Celestial Devourer. Let my unworthy archons keep you company for a while, Susimo said. So the holy progenitor guessed correctly, the undying sage monarch said gravely. No wonder you've survived so many of the heavenly court's hunts. You've had guardians protecting your path. If it were a duel against one of these infernal archons, he would not have feared it. But facing four at once was far worse than he had expected. There's much your holy progenitor doesn't know, Susimo said calmly. He shouldn't be so sure he holds the reins of heaven and earth. Who's truly playing the game, and who's just a piece on the board, that's far from clear. The holy progenitor didn't know that Susimo had received the inheritance of the previous infernal lord in the Lost Lands. If he did, he would never have dared to send the undying sage monarch here. Should Susimo unleash that power, even this old man would be nothing before him, and even the holy progenitor himself might not prevail. At his apex, the previous infernal lord had been in existence beyond compare, an invincible being who regarded even the heavenly court as nothing, one who could stand before the great Tao itself and stand against high heaven. Paimon and the others studied the undying sage monarch. Paimon finally sighed and said, "Impressive. I didn't expect you to have forged a new path." "What new path?" the sage monarch said with a faint, weary smile. "It's just a dead end I was forced to take. My journey was too smooth," he continued softly. "And that's why it ended like this." He had risen during the High Ancient Era, a peerless genius among billions. In a short span of time, he had ascended to the realm of Saint Sovereign, shocking the entire age. Calling himself the Burier of Bones, he sought ever stronger opponents, hoping to perfect his Tao. By the end of the ancient age, he had already become a sage monarch. But his ambition didn't stop there. He longed to break through to the infinite Tao realm, to open the 11th Meridian Gate. Thus, through the entire Middle Ages, he remained in seclusion. Even after that age faded into history, he still had not emerged. Yet the difficulty of opening that 11th meridian was beyond words. At last, he gave up. He stopped chasing after the impossible and turned instead to refining his own sage monarch Tao. And so, his strength grew greater and greater, eventually surpassing that of many sage monarchs. He had blazed a new trail beyond the sage monarch realm. But this path had limits, and now he had reached its very end. It meant that, for the rest of his life, he would never reach the infinite Tao realm. No matter how much he evolved or struggled, he could not grow any stronger. Even a single step further was as hard as ascending to heaven itself. That was the price he paid, the price of walking a dead-end path for the sake of power. Yet Paimon and the others did not mock him. Instead, they said with quiet respect, "The road to infinite Tao is indeed perilous. We've endured countless eons, yet still linger before the gate of the sage monarch. At least you've never abandoned your Tao heart," the undying sage monarch said with a sigh. "I was the one who gave up first. Now then, enough talk," he said finally. "I came today to bury bones, not reminisce." "Then today," Paimon said calmly, "we shall fight in our Lord's stead." The infernal energy of the heavens poured forth. In the lonely desert, perhaps for the first time in millions of years, such a cataclysmic battle was about to begin. The undying sage monarch lifted his head, his expression now solemn. Behind him, tendrils of flame began to rise, coalescing into the form of a phoenix. "You're not human," the violet mist Saint Sovereign said in surprise. "One of the lesser 8 beast races, the undying phoenix race," said Moonlight Fairy, frowning slightly. They had all heard of the 16 beast races of the god beast race. As the rulers of Azure Mystic Heaven, their numbers were few, and they rarely appeared in other realms. So while the names of the 16 races were known, few had actually seen one of their kind. "I don't dare claim kinship with the beast races," the undying sage monarch said, shaking his head. "I am the undying sage monarch. That is all." At that, the violet mist Saint Sovereign let the matter drop. The god-beast races were powerful beyond question, the pinnacle of the 9 heavens. But Susimo's expression grew strange. Since obtaining the beast compendium, He had paid special attention to the 16 beast races. "So it's an undying phoenix," he said. "Then reincarnation and rebirth are your innate gifts." No wonder. Paimon and the others surrounded the sage monarch. A torrent of infernal energy erupted, engulfing the sky itself until the heavens became a realm of pure darkness, a domain of ancient demons. Seven-faced, seven-petaled lotus bloomed, each petal emanating deathly miasma and killing intent. The undying sage monarch swung his right fist, flames of immortality burning upon it. With a single punch, he shattered the seven-petaled lotus. But the lotus's miasma clung to his arm like a venom, its dark flames burning into his flesh. Redblade Bull Demon reverted to his true form, a towering bull demon wielding a massive axe. Each of his steps left deep craters in the desert floor. With a roar, he brought his axe down in a devastating blow. Behind the undying sage monarch, the phoenix screamed, its shadow flickering as if about to vanish. Paimon and Celestial Devourer attacked together, two surging torrents of infernal energy crashing toward the sage monarch like twin floods. "Good!" the undying sage monarch bellowed. He rose into the sky, and behind him unfolded a pair of colossal wings, vast enough to blot out the heavens. The crimson feathers burned, setting the entire sky ablaze. The wings folded inward, encasing him completely. Then he shone like a rising sun, a sphere of immortal flame, eternal and undying. When all the infernal energy surged toward him, the undying sage monarch's true fate appeared across the sky. The blazing sun behind him shone high, dominating half the heavens as though it intended to devour everything beneath it. "With just you think to swallow us?" snorted Redblade Bull Demon. His own true fate manifested as well, a towering bull demon that stood against heaven and earth. This bull demon was not identical to Redblade Bull Demon himself. It was thousands of times larger, similar in form but different in countless subtle details. "The future self," said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign in surprise. The so-called future self meant that one day, Redblade Bull Demon would grow to become identical to the manifestation of his true fate now. To touch even a fragment of the future was, in some sense, to transcend the flow of time itself. For the river of time dealt only with the past, events that had already occurred and could be traced. But the future was the unknown, untouchable by most. For Redblade Bull Demon to use his future self as his true fate meant one thing. He had already carved out his own Tao. Though he had yet to step into the infinite Tao realm, he was only a step away from opening the 11th divine meridian. With his future self revealed, the bull's roar shook the heavens. Redblade Bull Demon was the first to charge forward. Swinging his massive axe, he unleashed explosions across the void. The other infernal archons did not hold back either. Each unleashed their holy might, suppressing the four directions and surrounding the undying sage monarch at the center. Finally, under the relentless assaults, even the sage monarch's true fate could no longer endure. It began to flicker, becoming dim and indistinct. The undying sage monarch's aura weakened steadily, until at last he was completely suppressed. The phantom of the undying phoenix behind him shattered. "We won," said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign with a sigh of relief. "Not yet," Suzimo said, shaking his head. "Did you forget his title? He's called the Undying Sage Monarch for a reason." "Should I help?" asked the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. "No need. These infernal archons have fought side by side for countless ages. You'd only get in their way," Suzimo replied. Paimon and the others had fought together since the most ancient of times. To them, each other's movements were as familiar as their own. As the undying sage monarch was pressed down, a sharp cry echoed through the void, the cry of a phoenix. The sky itself shattered under its force. A tremendous surge of power erupted from the sage monarch's body. Paimon and the others were flung back by the blast. When they steadied themselves, their eyes glowed with demonic light as they looked toward the center. The undying sage monarch's body had vanished. In its place, a blazing sphere of light pulsed and flickered. "He's revealing his true form," said Paimon. Sure enough, As his words fell, the radiance faded, revealing a colossal, undying phoenix before them. This was no true fate, nor a projected illusion. This was the real undying phoenix, one of the lower 8 royal beast races. The phoenix's feathers shimmered in 7-colored brilliance, surrounded by flames of undying fire. Its majestic presence spread across the land. Across the boundless desert, countless beasts prostrated themselves, not daring to lift their heads. To look upon it was to blaspheme. The king of god-beasts. Its eyes burned with pride as it gazed down upon all living beings from its lofty perch. Its vast wings stretched wide, blotting out the sky. Yet Redblade Bull Demon showed no fear. He laughed loudly and said, "Back in the demon descent era, phoenixes were mounts, and azure dragons were appetizers with wine. Your kind may frighten others, but not me." He hefted his giant axe once more. His attacks held no technique, only pure, overwhelming power. He cultivated the Tao of strength itself. Legend said that once, a supreme being had proven the Tao through sheer strength, splitting heaven and earth apart, unstoppable in all things. "Comrades," Paimon roared, "today we slay this phoenix. Let no one dare call our ancient demon race weak again." Around him, infernal energy surged like a tidal sea. His domain of despair expanded outward, covering the heavens with a storm of black clouds. Seven-Face transformed into a lotus of 7 faces. That lotus rooted deep into the ground, its myriad petals blooming as it absorbed all the world's despair and negativity. Celestial Devourer raised his aura to the sky, piercing through the heavens themselves. The demonic currents merged into a river in the sky, which soon became an ocean, a sea of ancient demons. That dark ocean churned violently above, flooding the heavens like an infernal tide. Celestial Devourer stood within it, his body half submerged in its depths. The 4 ancient demons struck together with absolute force. For torrents of power converged at once, shaking the heavens and earth. Even under such crushing might, the undying phoenix managed to endure. Flames of undying fire burned brighter and brighter upon its wings. The undying flame was also the fire of nirvana. The more grievous the sage monarch's wounds, the stronger the flames became. And when the nirvana fire reached a certain point, it would trigger rebirth. The phoenix cried out again and again, its voice echoing through heaven and earth. "You cannot kill me," said the undying sage monarch. "Your strength will eventually wane, but I shall rise again and again." "Damn it!" Redblade Bull Demon roared in fury. He strode forward, tossing aside his massive axe. Reaching the phoenix, he seized both its wings in his hands and tore them apart. "Then we'll kill you as many times as it takes," he bellowed. "Old Bull's not backing down today." As the phoenix was ripped apart, the flames of nirvana gathered once more. From within the fire came the sound of a beating heart. He was resurrecting again. "Enough, Old Bull," Suzimo said, interrupting the demon's rage. "Can't you see it yet? He's using you. He wants to die." "What?" The bull demon froze. Suzimo stepped into the air, looking up at the phoenix in the heavens. With a faint smile, he said, "You've played your hand well. My lord, could you explain?" asked the bull demon, scratching his head. "This old bull's a bit lost. Don't you understand?" Suzimo said. "With every rebirth, a phoenix grows stronger. He's taken the wrong path. His Tao has reached a dead end. He can't advance even a step further, and breaking through the 11th meridian is nothing but a dream. But he knows this himself. Since he's an undying phoenix, each death allows him to rebuild his Tao foundation, to strike once more at the gate of the great Tao, hoping to set his path right." As Suzimo spoke, realization dawned on the others. This man wasn't fighting to survive, he was seeking death, using the phoenix's power of rebirth to reshape his Tao foundation. "So what if you've seen through it?" said the undying sage monarch coldly. "Will you kill me or not? You really think your undying phoenix race is truly immortal?" Suzimo said with a faint smile, lifting his head. Of course, our immortality is true immortality, one acknowledged and permitted by heaven itself, said the undying sage monarch without hesitation. He spoke with absolute confidence. He believed that apart from the heavenly Tao, no one could truly kill him. The nirvana of the phoenix race existed within the rules of heaven. Put simply, those who cannot kill me only make me stronger. He had come to hunt Su Zimo not merely to repay the favor owed to the holy progenitor, but also to use the ancient demon's power to force himself into death after death, hoping that through repeated rebirths, he might rebuild his Tao foundation. Otherwise, his life's path would end here forever. You may be an ancient, lingering phoenix from ages past, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. But it seems your clan's ancestors never told you the truth. What do you mean? The undying sage monarch frowned, a faint unease rising in his heart. Though he did not know why, he sensed something dreadful was coming. Back in the demon descent era, Su Zimo said calmly, when I roamed the world, even heaven and earth gave way before me. All ancient demons followed in my wake. The so-called heavenly court were but worms cowering in the shadows. He continued, if your undying phoenix race were truly immortal, why did you hide from the world back then? Ha! Heroes shouldn't dwell on the past. The undying sage monarch sneered. You, a mighty infernal lord, do you only know how to cling to yesterday's glory? You're mistaken, Su Zimo said quietly. I speak not out of nostalgia, but to remind you that during the era of the ancient demons, your so-called 16 beast races were nothing more than ants beneath our feet. I once used my divine power to bind the fate of your beast races together, forcing you to sign the Beast Compendium. From that day onward, whoever possessed the Beast Compendium would hold dominion over your lives and deaths. That's impossible. The phoenix's massive body trembled. Nonsense. My beast race is proud beyond compare. Even in retreat, we would never bow in submission. You're wrong, Su Zimo said with a faint shake of his head. Had you not yielded back then, I would have exterminated your kind entirely. Submission is merely another way of surviving. The beast races were not weaker than humanity. For anyone else to speak of annihilating them would be laughable. But Su Zimo was not exaggerating. In the ancient age, he had waged war against the heavens themselves and nearly destroyed the world. To erase one beast race would have been nothing to him. But the former infernal lord of that era created the Beast Compendium, binding the fate of the beast races and sparing them from extinction. In that distant time, his command alone could make all beasts tremble and obey. Later, when the infernal lord perished in his attempt to destroy the world, the Beast Compendium was lost to time. When Su Zimo returned to the world, someone had spent countless ages searching and finally placed the Beast Compendium back into his hands. Through his journey across the 9 heavens, the Beast Compendium had already recorded the roaring beast, the primordial dragon, and now, it seemed, another would soon be added, the undying phoenix. When the 16 beast races were all recorded, a new era of beasts would once again dawn. I don't wish to discuss the past, said the undying sage monarch. What's done is dust. Who can truly judge it now? I came today only to kill you, and to rebuild my Tao foundation. Su Zimo did not answer him. He only turned to Paimon and the others and said, suppress him. Don't kill him. Yes, they replied in unison. Terrifying infernal energy surged across the land. The void rippled as their power intertwined, forming a vast square cage. What are you doing? Demanded the undying sage monarch. Su Zimo didn't answer. Power surged around him as he raised his hands. Between his palms floated an ancient tome, the Beast Compendium. An overwhelming aura of primal beast energy emanated from it. What is that? The undying sage monarch's voice trembled. From that book, he felt a deep and instinctive loathing, an ancient pressure that seemed to target his very soul. Panic seized him. He tried to break through the cage of infernal energy. He was indeed powerful, so powerful that even the prison forged by Paimon and the other demon lords shuddered under his strikes, threatening to collapse at any moment. Master, we can't hold him much longer, Paimon warned. If he breaks free and flees, it'll be troublesome. I know, Suzimo said calmly. He turned another page of the Beast Compendium until he reached the third, which was blank. Instantly, the page erupted in golden light that shot to the heavens. Within that light stirred a mysterious power. Chains of divine radiance emerged from the page, extending toward the struggling phoenix. Stay back. What in the hells is that thing? The undying phoenix roared. But the moment the chains wrapped around his colossal form, all struggle became meaningless. The flames of nirvana flared wildly upon him, as if trying to burn through the chains. My lord, I was wrong, he cried out in panic. I was blind. I didn't recognize your greatness. Spare me this once. I will never oppose you again. But his enormous body was already being drawn, inch by inch, into the Beast Compendium. A terrible realization struck him. Once he was sealed within, there would be no rebirth. He would never rise again. He would become the eternal sinner of the Phoenix race. It's too late, Suzimo said, smiling faintly. I've been searching for the 16 beast races, and you've saved me the trouble of finding you. Heaven gave you a path, yet you chose to walk straight into hell. As the undying sage monarch screamed, the Beast Compendium swallowed him completely. When it closed, a new image appeared upon its third page, a radiant phoenix, wings spread wide. Suzimo put the Beast Compendium away, and Paimon and the others returned to the god world. He looked up at the sky, eyes narrowing slightly. So, that was a test. Young Master Su Yu, said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign, standing nearby, unsure what to say. They had known Suzimo was from the ancient demon race, but they had not expected this. The hidden infernal lord himself, the one commanding 4 infernal archons as his followers. If you have something to say, just say it, Suzimo replied. It's nothing, the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said awkwardly. It's just, the change in identity is a bit hard to process. I'm still me, Suzimo said with a faint smile. Nothing has changed. Now, do you know where we are? The two shook their heads. A vast desert stretched endlessly around them, barren and lifeless. It was no surprise they couldn't tell their location. The teleportation formation was destroyed. Let's look around and ask someone. See how far we are from the Lotus Pathway, Suzimo said. And remember what happened today. You saw nothing. Speak of it, and you'll only invite disaster. Of course, the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said quickly, nodding. The 3 of them took to the air, searching for a way out. But all they saw was endless yellow sand, not a single trace of life. With no better option, they picked a direction and began flying. For 3 days they traveled across the desert. At last, they saw a wisp of smoke curling into the sky. There's an inn ahead, said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. Let's go ask. Suzimo nodded. The inn appeared suddenly and without warning. Why was that strange? Because the great desert stretched endlessly in every direction. No people, no shadows, not even a trace of life. How could anyone have built an inn in a place like this? Still, it was the first building the 3 of them had seen in days. They landed on the sand and approached the inn. Temple of Desolation. Though it was merely an inn, its name was imposing. The name Desolation echoed faintly through the vast desert. The building itself was old. The wooden beams were decaying, and some had been hollowed out by insects. Inside, a few simple tables and chairs were neatly arranged. Anyone here? Called out the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. The 3 entered. As they did, the curtain over the doorway was lifted, and an elderly woman, hunched and frail, shuffled out from within. Are you here to stay the night, or to eat? She asked. We'd like a meal, and we'd also like to ask for directions, said the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign with a polite smile. May I ask what this place is called? Desolation, the old woman replied. Desolation? I've never heard of such a place. The saint frowned slightly. Do you know how far we are from the Lotus Pathway? The path lies within Desolation. A lotus from 10,000 years ago still blooms here. The old woman said softly, "You've already arrived." "Arrived?" The saint laughed. "You must be joking, elder. There's nothing here but sand." "What does the desert belong to?" asked the old woman. All three hesitated. Only Su Zimo answered calmly, "The desert belongs to fire." "This was once a vast oasis," the old woman said, "until one day, heavenly fire descended and burned the land bare. From then on, the people here either died or left, leaving behind only this one inn." "Then why didn't you leave, elder?" the saint asked. "I grew attached to this place. I can't bear to leave," she said, shaking her head. "And besides, at my age, where else could I go?" The three exchanged a look. They still had doubts, but her affairs were her own. It wasn't their place to pry. The violet mist Saint Sovereign asked again, "Then do you know how we might reach the Hua heavenly clan?" "That I do not know," she said. "I've lived here all my life, never left this inn, and know nothing of the outside world." "In that case, elder, what food do you serve here?" "We'll have whatever you recommend," the saint said. It was clear the old woman was an ordinary mortal. Not a hint of spirit energy flowed within her. Surviving here at all was already remarkable. "Whatever you wish to eat, we can make it," she said with a smile. That confidence seemed almost exaggerated. "Then bring us 3 bottles of good wine, and whatever dishes you're proudest of," said the saint, smiling. "There is one thing I should remind you of," the old woman said with a chuckle. "In this inn, meals cost no money. You simply have to pass through a formation." "A formation?" The three of them looked intrigued. "Yes. Whether or not you can pass, it doesn't matter," she said. "You'll still eat for free." "Interesting," Su Zimo said, nodding. Hearing their agreement, the old woman called out, "Big Zhuang, we have guests. Make a few of your best dishes." "The inn has someone else?" the violet mist Saint Sovereign asked, surprised. His divine sense had swept through earlier, and he hadn't sensed another living presence. "My useless son," the old woman said with a smile. Moments later, a tall, broad-shouldered, middle-aged man emerged, carrying a tray. On it were steaming dishes, fragrant and appetizing, enough to make anyone's mouth water. Beside the tables stood a cabinet filled with jars of wine. The old woman took 3 bottles and set them before the guests. "Please enjoy," the man said courteously. "Didn't expect food this good in such a forsaken place." The saint said cheerfully, appetite stirred. Su Zimo took a sip of the wine. It had been aged for at least half a year, mellow and rich, with a lingering fragrance. "Good wine," he said with a nod. After finishing their meal, a pleasure they hadn't enjoyed in a long time, they were satisfied. The simplest ingredients, yet somehow turned into something exquisite. "Elder, where's that formation you mentioned?" "I'd like to take a look," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Follow me," said the middle-aged man, who had remained silent until now. They followed him deeper into the inn. The moment they stepped inside, the violet mist Saint Sovereign froze in astonishment. This is a pocket world? Because before them lay not sand, but clouds and sky, a vast land filled with ancient forests. Gigantic, primordial beasts soared above them. The trees here reached thousands of meters high, exuding the raw power of an untamed era, as though this place had existed since the dawn of creation. "What is this place?" the saint asked quickly. Su Zimo closed his eyes briefly, sensing the energy around them before answering, "It's a formation." "How can that be? How can a formation create an entire world from nothing?" The saint said, still in disbelief. "You're right, young master," said the middle-aged man calmly. "I spent 10,000 years constructing this formation. Even I no longer know how many formations lie hidden within it. Every tree, every blade of grass, every living creature, all of them are formed from the patterns of the formation." His voice was steady, his will unshakable. To have built something so vast must have cost him unimaginable effort. Even he did not know how many formations were interwoven here. "What was your purpose in creating all this?" the saint asked. I believe formations can give rise to all things, the man replied. So I wanted to see if I could create an entire world with them. The limit of formations, Suzimo murmured softly. Then he asked, what do you need us to do? This isn't a single formation, the man said. It can evolve into killing formations, trapping formations, illusions, even supportive formations. I'd like you to test it to tell me what flaws remain. Of course, if you find nothing, that's fine too. This inn has stood for 10,000 years, and every traveler who's come through has taken a turn in the formation. Don't feel pressured. Then we'll try it, Suzimo said with a nod. The three stepped into the formation. The instant their feet touched the air within, the world outside vanished completely. The man activated the formation, and before their eyes, the illusion came alive, a world that felt utterly real. Within that vast, ancient, and desolate world, the air felt heavy and dim. Standing in it, one couldn't help but feel insignificant. Yet it was not completely silent. Every now and then, faint movements could be heard, as if unseen beasts wandered through the shadows. Had the middle-aged man not warned them beforehand, the three of them would have taken this world to be real. Remarkable, Suzimo murmured in admiration. A single heart of formation, capable of evolving all things between heaven and earth. Now then, my guests. The middle-aged man's voice came from all directions. This is a killing formation. The moment he spoke, a suffocating aura of slaughter filled the air. The once normal beasts began to mutate, their bodies swelling to 100 times their original size. Land and sky teemed with them, flying creatures, crawling monsters, a tide of countless beasts charging toward the three. Good. Come then. The violet mist Saint Sovereign shouted, violet radiance bursting around him. But in the next instant, his expression changed slightly. My primal Daos are being suppressed. This formation, it's stronger than I thought. He could feel it clearly. His mastery over his own primal Daos was sluggish here, restrained by some unseen power. Don't focus on killing the beasts, Suzimo said calmly. Feel this world itself. You may gain some insight from it. The violet mist Saint Sovereign and Moonlight Fairy both nodded. Suzimo didn't summon Shadow Tyrant. As a beast lunged, he simply reached out, caught it by the neck, and with a single twist, snapped it. When the creature died, there was no blood, no corpse. It dissolved into pure threads of formation energy. Suzimo closed his eyes briefly, sensing the essence of that energy, then shook his head. Ingenious, he murmured, but lifeless. There is no soul in it. He knew what he was talking about. The god world he had forged was a living world. Every being there had its own breath of life. When all the beasts had fallen, the middle-aged man's voice came again. Next comes the trapping formation. In an instant, the colossal trees of the ancient forest began to sway violently. Their roots tore free from the ground, and they marched forward, encircling Suzimo and his companions. Countless thick branches intertwined, forming a prison of living wood. Even beneath the grass, hidden tendrils crept forward to strike. Why don't you just activate all the forms of your formation at once? Suzimo said. In that case, watch closely, replied the man's voice. The entire world trembled. An immense surge of spirit energy erupted like a storm. From the sky came the roars of divine beasts, creatures of myth and legend emerging one after another. Golden lotuses bloomed from the earth. The heavens turned upside down, rivers of stars flowing across the firmament. The sun and moon rose and fell, cycling endlessly. The seasons shifted in an instant, spring, summer, autumn, winter. This world was more complete than Suzimo had expected. But to his eyes, it was still only an imitation, a dead thing. He closed his eyes, feeling the rhythm of its existence. Then he opened them again and snapped his fingers. In that instant, everything vanished. All illusions dissolved, the beasts, the trees, the sky, the seasons, gone. For that brief moment, Suzimo became the master of the world itself. He had taken control of the formation, right out of the middle-aged man's hands. "What's happening?" the man exclaimed in disbelief. This formation world was his creation, his life's work. He knew every thread of its structure. Yet now, standing within it, he felt something foreign, something that no longer obeyed his will. Because at that moment, Su Zimo was the one in control. He opened his hand, and the formation released its hold. The three of them stepped calmly out. The middle-aged man hurried forward. "Honored guest, please instruct me. How did you do that?" "Before that," Su Zimo said with a small smile, "tell me your name." "Mo Changtian," the man replied. "Should I call you Mo Changtian?" Su Zimo said with amusement. "Or the Formation Emperor? Though now that you've attained sainthood, Emperor might no longer be the right title." The Formation Emperor, how many still remembered that name? Back on the primordial heartlands in the eastern continent, there had been a Mo imperial clan. Their ancestor was this very man, the Formation Emperor. In the past, he had left behind the legendary Hexagenesis immortal formation. It was said the formation could only be broken from outside. Anyone trapped within could never escape. Now that Su Zimo had seen far greater worlds, he recognized the flaws in it, though back then, he had even recorded that formation into his astrolabe. "You're from the primordial heartlands as well?" Mo Changtian said, realization dawning on his face. He sighed softly. "Each generation brings forth new talents indeed." Su Zimo smiled faintly. Meeting someone from his homeland here was a kind of fate. Since arriving in the Nine Heavens, he had learned little of the old Grand Emperors from primordial heartlands. Those who had reached that level were destined to seek higher realms, likely climbing to the upper domains of the Nine Heavens. And Su Zimo knew in his heart, the higher he ascended, the more familiar faces he would meet again. "Please, Dao brother," said Mo Changtian earnestly, "teach me, how did you seize control of my formation? Your formation is fascinating. I'll grant you that," Su Zimo said. "But you wish to create an entire world from it. Even leaving everything else aside, there's one thing you can never achieve." "What is that?" asked Mo Changtian. "Your world operates only under your will," Su Zimo said. "That makes it a dead world. Everything within it follows patterns you set. A true world," he continued, "is unpredictable. It has no set rhythm, no clear path ahead. Every living being follows its own destiny. That's what we call the Grand Tao, infinite Taos, infinite choices. But in your world, though you've formed living creatures, there's no life in them. They move only by your intent. Once I understood your intent, I could take control myself." Su Zimo rarely interfered with the development of his God world for this very reason. Every creature in a living world must have its own thoughts, its own will. Once that freedom is caged, the world becomes nothing more than a lifeless shell. His words struck Mo Changtian like a thunderclap of revelation. "Then, Dao brother?" Mo asked quickly. "Is there a way to fix it?" Su Zimo shook his head. "You're too greedy. A formation-born world, it's impossible. No matter which path you take, it can't be done." He spoke as one who had already walked that road and knew its limits. This wasn't a matter of missing some component. It simply defied the nature of reality itself. Mo Changtian sighed, a faint smile on his lips. "True enough. I felt it myself over the years. I must have taken a wrong turn long ago. But after 10,000 years, I've grown used to it. It's hard to change now. As long as you're content, isn't that what matters?" Su Zimo said with a chuckle. "By the way, I have a question. We're headed to the Hua Heavenly Clan. Do you know the way?" "There's no fixed path to the Hua Heavenly Clan," Mo Changtian replied. "Just follow the direction of the sun. You'll reach it eventually." The sun's position changed every single day. It was always in motion, never still. Yet, many still used it as the main guide to determine direction. Su Zimo had never considered navigating this way before. "Are you heading to the Inferno Crucible Heaven?" the Formation Emperor asked. "That's right." The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign nodded. "I heard that not long ago, the Hua Heavenly Clan experienced a great upheaval. The current head died mysteriously, and the newly appointed successor has taken charge. However, from what I've heard, his reputation is far from good. You should tread carefully, the Formation Emperor warned. Why don't you come with us? The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign invited. Since your path of formations has reached a dead end, why not join us in the Inferno Crucible Heaven and see a wider world? I appreciate your kindness, Mo Changtian said, shaking his head. But I have no such plans. I've grown fond of the quiet life in this desert. This inn of mine is named Desolation of Heaven, meaning to age and fade away together with heaven and earth. Take care, then, Su Zimo said without pressing him. I can't go with you, Mo Changtian replied. But I can at least offer you a formation that might be of some help. He waved his right hand, and the ground beneath their feet began to crack apart. From deep within the earth, profound runes of formation energy began to stir and evolve endlessly. In the Tao of formations, among all those Su Zimo had ever met, this man truly stood at the pinnacle, because his heart was pure and still, untouched by worldly distractions. For countless millennia, he had devoted himself solely to formations. As the ground split open like a great abyss, Mo Changtian's eyes flared with golden light. Wherever that light passed, the sound of locks breaking echoed, "Kacha, kacha." A blinding, hellish radiance erupted from below. In the past, Mo Changtian said slowly, I left behind the Hexagenesis immortal formation, hoping to create a flawless formation, one that could never be broken. But later I came to understand. Heaven always leaves a thread of life. There is nothing in this world that cannot be undone. All things coexist in balance, mutual generation and mutual restraint. After that, he continued, I reworked my art and created a new formation, the Heaven-Slaying Blood River Formation. This is a killing formation, an ultimate killing formation. If I were to fully activate it, even the heavenly Tao itself might not tolerate it. So I sealed it here, nurtured by the celestial vein beneath this land. Since you've come here today, consider it a gift from an old acquaintance. As his words fell, an intricate and immense formation disk rose from the rift in the earth. This complexity was staggering, every rune, every rotation interlocked seamlessly with the next. Tens of thousands of formation variations intertwined, capable of separating or fusing together in perfect harmony. As the disk appeared, an eerie phenomenon accompanied it. A phantom blood river suspended upside down within the formation. Looking into that river, one could almost see endless slaughter, mountains of corpses, seas of blood, a world consumed by carnage. Su Zimo received the formation disk, feeling the immense power pulsing within. He smiled faintly. A fine gift. Let's hope the Hua Heavenly Clan has the sense to recognize its meaning. He stored the disk away and bid farewell to the Formation Emperor. The latter personally walked them out of the inn, watching until their silhouettes disappeared into the distance. Then, Mo Changtian once again became an ordinary man, nothing more than a humble cook in a lonely inn amid the desert. Following the direction of the sun, the three of them set out along the path toward the Lotus Pathway. At night, when the sun was gone, they would rest. After traveling continuously for 7 days, they finally reached the edge of heaven and earth, and there they saw it. A colossal lotus standing upright between heaven and earth. Its roots sank deep into the earth. Its petals seemed to uphold the very firmament. The sight was breathtaking, enough to leave any first-time witness in stunned silence. Heaven and earth born of one sacred lotus. The Violet Mist Saint Sovereign sighed with awe. The Hua Heavenly Clan truly has great fortune to have made their home here. The lotus itself was a treasure, a divine object born of heaven and earth, rare beyond measure. A perfect 5 elements god lotus, Su Zimo said with a faint shake of his head. Born of nature and balance, ruined like this. If one looked closely, one could sense the overwhelming presence of fire energy within the lotus. Some of its petals were already tinged red. The 5 elements god lotus was supposed to maintain perfect balance among the 5 elements, each generating and restraining the others. But after the Hua Heavenly Clan occupied this place, they imposed their own fiery totem upon it, suppressing the other four elements and letting the fire aspect grow unchecked. The consequences weren't yet visible, but with time, the imbalance would only worsen. I heard this five elements god lotus already gained sentience long ago, the violet mist Saint Sovereign said. It's cultivated for countless ages. After all these years of the Hua heavenly clan's worship, if we destroy the clan, the lotus might intervene. All the better, Su Zimo replied coldly. If the five elements god lotus had grown naturally, I might show some restraint. But they've forced its growth, distorted its balance. If it dares to stop us, I'll tear it up by the roots. The three of them walked toward the lotus. From afar it was already immense, but the closer they got, the more they realized its true scale. Its leaves rose like green clouds to the heavens. At the base of the lotus were several small gateways, the entrance to the lotus pathway. Master Yang, heading out to catch fire scorpions again? Yeah, this is the season when they build their nests. Good time to collect them and make some money. Then make sure you come back early tonight. The Hua heavenly clans booked the whole lotus pathway. Everything's free today. Of course, the Grand Envoy of Inferno Crucible is here. The whole place is on alert like never before. They say this inspection only happens once every 10 years. Why so early this time? Could it be related to the head's death? Around the lotus pathway, villagers whispered among themselves. This isolated valley lived at its own pace, quiet, leisurely, cut off from the outside world. Gossip was their only connection to news beyond the valley. The Grand Envoy of Inferno Crucible, Su Zimo murmured. He's said to come from the Inferno Crucible heaven, Moonlight Fairy explained. His job is to inspect and evaluate the Hua heavenly clan. If they fail the evaluation, they'll be dismissed, and another will take over the post guarding this entrance. Let's go, Su Zimo said. We'll see for ourselves. As they stepped into the lotus pathway, a wave of dense fire attribute spirit energy enveloped them. The temperature was like that of a giant furnace. The locals, long accustomed to it, went about their business unfazed. Moonlight Fairy, whose primal das aligned with ice, was clearly uncomfortable. Within minutes, her fair skin glistened with a sheen of sweat. The lotus pathway was bustling with activity. Other than travelers heading to the Inferno Crucible heaven, said the violet mist Saint Sovereign, almost no one ever comes here. Because of that, there were very few inns, travelers were rare, and the valley was largely self-contained. Inside the lotus pathway, most places were trading grounds. Even gold coins did not circulate here. Bartering was far more common. The three walked through several streets before finally finding an inn. The inn was packed with people. Because the Inferno Crucible envoy had arrived, all expenses in the lotus pathway were being covered by the Hua heavenly clan. Naturally, people came flocking in, eager to take advantage of the opportunity. After all, who would pass up a free meal? Let's see if there's a quiet room inside, Su Zimo said. When they entered, the servers were so busy that they barely had time to greet anyone. Find your own seats, honored guests. Just shout if you need anything. A server called out over the noise. Do you still have private rooms? Violet Mist Saint Sovereign asked. Private rooms? Honored guests, even getting a table in the hall today is a blessing, the server said with a bitter smile, sweat dripping down his forehead as he rushed off again. Their luck wasn't bad, though a nearby group had just vacated their table. As the waiting crowd surged forward to grab it, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign moved faster than anyone, taking the spot in an instant. There were 4 seats at the table. Besides Su Zimo's group of 3, a scholarly young man also squeezed in. The moment he sat down, the young man shouted to the server, "Waiter, bring me one of everything on the house. Dragon phoenix liver, stir-fried scorpion emperor, 3 gene of fried camel hoof, and a pot of immortal drunkenness." "Right away, honored guest," the server shouted back. Su Zimo and his companions didn't mind, ordering only a few simple dishes. They were common fare, but the young man seemed puzzled. Looking at them, he said, "Hey, Today's all on the Hua Heavenly Clan. You might as well eat your fill. Ordinary dishes aren't worth it. No worries. We didn't come here for the food, Su Zimo replied with a small smile. You folks aren't from the Lotus Pathway, are you? The young man asked, curious. I've lived here 23 years, and I know almost everyone by face. But I've never seen any of you before. We're heading to the Inferno Crucible Heaven, Su Zimo said, nodding. There was no reason to hide it. Everyone who came to the Lotus Pathway had that same goal. The Inferno Crucible Heaven, huh? The young man replied. That's not a place just anyone can go. You'll need to pass the Hua Heavenly Clan's trial first. The passages between the 9 heavens are supposed to be open to all. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said coldly. Since when did they become someone's private property? Keep your voice down, the young man said quickly. The Hua Heavenly Clan runs this place. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. They've got the bigger fist. I heard the Inferno Crucible Envoy has arrived? Violet Mist Saint Sovereign asked. She's upstairs, the young man whispered, pointing to the 2nd floor. The Hua Heavenly Clan is personally entertaining her. They were supposed to host her in their mansion, but the envoy insisted on eating out, so they chose this inn. How interesting, Su Zimo murmured. The envoy must want to observe the Lotus Pathway for herself. Maybe, the young man said, shrugging. But every envoy before her was wined and dined until their pockets overflowed. Birds of a feather, really. We might as well eat and drink while we can. As he spoke, the noisy inn suddenly fell silent. Footsteps echoed as a woman descended from the 2nd floor, surrounded by attendants. She wore a blazing red cloak and a golden robe that gleamed under the lamplight, an aura of strength and authority radiating from her like a war goddess. Her long red hair shimmered like fire itself. With phoenix eyes and crescent brows, her expression was sharp, commanding. Several figures followed behind her respectfully. See that middle-aged man? The young man whispered, pointing. That's the Hua Heavenly Clan's patriarch, Hua Tianxiong. And the young man on the right is his eldest son, Hua Yunfiang. But I've never seen a female envoy before. That's a first. Everyone watched in awe as the group exited the inn. Only after they disappeared from sight did the crowd return to normal. Su Zimo turned to the young man. Do you know how to get to the Inferno Crucible Heaven? First, you'll have to deliver a formal request to the Hua Heavenly Clan, he explained. If they approve, they'll test whether you're qualified. And even if you pass, you still have to pay a hefty amount of spirit crystals for passage. Too troublesome, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. He looked at Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. Later, you'll go to the Hua Heavenly Clan. Since we're already here, there's no point in tiptoeing around. Seeing how composed and confident they were, the young man realized these people weren't ordinary travelers and wisely held his tongue. By afternoon, the crowd in the inn had thinned. Su Zimo and Moonlight Fairy each rented a room, while Violet Mist Saint Sovereign set out for the Hua Heavenly Clan. The Hua Heavenly Clan's mansion sat at the center of the Lotus Pathway, right at the lotus's core. Here lay a fire spring, said to be the primordial flame of heaven and earth, capable of harmonizing all things. Before the grand estate stood 2 guards, their expressions stern, their stances rigid. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign approached, his body radiating divine brilliance. Who goes there? One of the guards barked as he neared. I wish to travel to the Inferno Crucible Heaven, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said flatly. Submit a formal request. If the Patriarch approves, you may return, the guard replied indifferently. I don't have time for that, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said. The passage to the Inferno Crucible Heaven is supposed to be public. If your Hua Heavenly Clan insists on occupying it, fine. But don't block my path. I wish to see your Patriarch. The Inferno Crucible Envoy is here. The Patriarch isn't seeing anyone right now, the guard said coldly. I don't care who you are, but here in the Lotus Pathway, you'd best behave yourself. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign didn't bother arguing with a mere guard. Instead, His voice boomed with divine power, resonating across heaven and earth. Where is the patriarch of the Hua heavenly clan? Come out and meet me. His voice echoed for thousands of miles. In an instant, the entire heavenly fire estate erupted into chaos. Who dares cause trouble before the Hua heavenly clan? Several thunderous auras surged into the sky, their power locking onto Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. But he stood calmly, unshaken. I merely wish to visit the Inferno Crucible Heaven and have come to request an audience with your patriarch. Is that unreasonable? He said evenly. Just then, several figures emerged from within the mansion. There's nothing unreasonable about that, came a voice. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign looked up. The speaker was Hua Tianxiong, the newly appointed patriarch of the Hua heavenly clan. He wore a crimson robe, dyed as red as fresh blood. His steps were steady and proud, his posture upright and imposing. But he was not the main figure here, for beside him, the woman known as the Inferno Crucible Envoy walked in front. He and several others merely followed in attendance. Patriarch Hua, since this person came for you, you should handle it, the woman said calmly. Hua Tianxiong gave a small nod. He stepped forward, looked at Violet Mist Saint Sovereign, and asked, May I know who you are? What, do you need to investigate my background just to travel to the Inferno Crucible Heaven? I'm just an ordinary person, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said evenly. The passage between the two realms may be open to all, Hua Tianxiong replied. But it is unstable, filled with spatial turbulence and unpredictable danger. Many have lost their lives there. The Inferno Crucible Heaven has invested great effort and resources to repair it. If you wish to enter, that's fine, but you'll have to pay for the maintenance costs. Surely that's not too much to ask. That's acceptable. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign nodded. List out the required payment. I'll bring it all tomorrow morning. At his level, ordinary resources meant little to him. Unless something involved a divine artifact of the Grand Tao itself, he had little need for material wealth. Thus, he agreed easily. Immediately, a member of the Hua heavenly clan handed him a detailed list. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign glanced at it. Everything on the list seemed reasonable, nothing excessive. He accepted it and turned to leave, intending to return to the inn and report to Su Zimo. As he departed, a dark glint flickered in Hua Tianxiong's eyes. Then he turned toward the woman beside him and smiled. I wonder, what does the envoy think of how I handled that? Quite well, she replied. But remember, the Inferno Crucible Heaven allows your Hua heavenly clan to exist for one purpose only, to safeguard the passage. You are not here to rule this place or act as you please. Back at the inn, after hearing Violet Mist Saint Sovereign's report, Su Zimo tapped his fingers on the table and smiled. Get ready for battle. Battle? Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said in surprise. Surely the Hua heavenly clan wouldn't be that reckless. If it were an ordinary time, fighting us would be one thing, Moonlight Fairy said, nodding. But now, with the Inferno Crucible Envoy present and the assessment underway, starting a war would be suicide. Exactly, Su Zimo said. That means the Hua heavenly clan has only two choices. Either they behave, help us enter the Inferno Crucible Heaven, and keep their dignity intact, or they tear off their masks completely. Not just with us, but even against the envoy herself. Whether they dare depends on how deep their cooperation with the Heavenly Court goes. I nearly forgot about the Heavenly Court, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign muttered, frowning. If they're determined to serve as the court's lackeys, then with its protection, even the Inferno Crucible Heaven might not be able to touch them. Across the 9 heavens, countless forces steered clear of the Heavenly Court. Even infinite Tao cultivators, figures of myth and power, avoided provoking it. Though the Inferno Crucible Heaven was mighty, without an order from the being within the Radiant Court, they would never risk direct conflict with the Heavenly Court. The politics there were far too tangled. It seems we truly must prepare for a fight, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign sighed. He knew the Heavenly Court would never let the Infernal Lord go. If it were just him, a small figure, the court wouldn't bother. But the Infernal Lord? He was their greatest enemy. Everyone knew the heavenly court had existed since the primordial era. Through endless ages, as empires rose and fell, as countless titans perished and new powers rose to glory, the heavenly court had remained unshaken, like a pine clinging to a cliff, eternally standing atop the world. Suzimo was silent for a while, then turned to Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. "There's something I need you to do for me," he said. "Name it, Taoist Su." Violet Mist Saint Sovereign replied, nodding. Suzimo leaned closer and whispered a few words. That night, the stars glittered above. Suzimo sat cross-legged on his bed, meditating and absorbing his recent gains, the memories inherited from the Infernal Lord, the fragments of ancient divine lore. There was much to digest, but every bit of it deepened his understanding of his own path. The way of the ancient gods offered profound insight, a perfect mirror to refine his own Tao. Time slipped by, night deepened, then hurried footsteps echoed through the inn's hallway. The door opened, and Violet Mist Saint Sovereign entered, with another figure at his side. "Taoist Su, you were right," Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said gravely. "The Hua Heavenly Clan made their move tonight." Suzimo lit the lamp. In the flickering light, he saw who had come with Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. It was the Inferno Crucible envoy. But she no longer carried the proud, commanding air she had shown that afternoon. Her face was pale, her expression weary, her body exuding a faint but heavy scent of blood. Clearly, she had just escaped a fierce battle. "From the moment afternoon came, I was keeping watch near the Hua Heavenly Clan's estate," Violet Mist Saint Sovereign explained. "By dusk, fighting had broken out. The woman was ambushed. I pulled her out." "I didn't need saving," the woman said coldly. "I could have cut my way out myself." Despite her exhaustion, pride still shone in her eyes. "A fallen phoenix is still not a chicken," Suzimo said with a half-smile. "But you might want to understand your situation first." "Who are you people?" the woman demanded, her sharp gaze turning to Suzimo. She could tell he was the one in charge. "Our identities don't matter," Suzimo replied. "We only wish to reach the Inferno Crucible heaven. Saving you was incidental, but I do have some questions about the situation there." "I didn't need you to save me," she said stiffly. "I'll report everything truthfully to the Radiant Court. Once my report reaches them, the Lord will send someone to deal with the Hua Heavenly Clan. The passage to the Inferno Crucible heaven is currently under their full control," Suzimo said lightly. "How exactly do you plan to send your report?" Her eyes hardened at that, because he had struck right at the heart of her concern. "I already said we can cooperate," Suzimo continued. "If you're not interested, then Violet Mist Saint Sovereign, see our guest out." He waved his hand dismissively, unwilling to waste more time. The woman was silent for a long moment before finally asking, "How do you propose we cooperate?" "I want to know how you contact the Radiant Court," Suzimo said. "We can help you establish that connection. In return, you take us to the Inferno Crucible heaven." "As long as we reach the Hua Heavenly Clan's gateway to the Inferno Crucible heaven, I can transmit the message," the woman replied. "But the clan is now on full alert. The only way through is to force it. Are you sure you have the strength for that?" "Our strength isn't your concern," Suzimo said with a faint smile. "But tell me, this involves the Heavenly Court. Do you think your Radiant Court is willing to make an enemy of them?" "The Heavenly Court?" The woman frowned slightly, then gave a cold snort. No wonder they dared to act so brazenly. So, they found themselves a new patron. "But don't worry. The passage to the Inferno Crucible heaven must remain in the hands of our Radiant Court. We'll reclaim it at any cost. Even if the Heavenly Court interferes, so be it. We'll stand against them if we must." "That's good enough," Suzimo said with a smile, rising to his feet. "Judging by the time, it should be about right. Come on. Let's pay the Hua Heavenly Clan a visit." The three of them had been staying in the inn, and to the Hua Heavenly Clan, their whereabouts were no secret. Their identities weren't exactly hidden, either. When Violet Mist Saint Sovereign rescued the woman, the Hua Heavenly Clan didn't seem overly concerned. After all, the 5 elements god lotus had already been sealed. No one could leave through the lotus pathway. The group stepped out of the inn. The woman suddenly turned her gaze toward the direction of the Hua heavenly clan, her expression tightening. A powerful aura surged from afar, one that seemed to bear the weight of heaven itself, shaking the world with each step. As the figure approached, a vast river of spirit energy flowed behind him, arching upward into the sky and pressing down on the surrounding heavens and earth. That's one of the Hua heavenly clan's ancestors, the Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign, the woman said. It's said that he once obtained the bloodline of the Vermilion Bird itself. He's naturally attuned to fire. Be careful. What do you think? Su Zimo asked Violet Mist Saint Sovereign. He's just an eternal overlord. Watch me cut him down. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign replied boldly. His sage monarch realm had stabilized completely. Slaying an eternal overlord was not beyond his power. Of course, once one reached the level of Saint Sovereign, even a single minor realm of difference could mean a vast gap in strength. Where is the Inferno Crucible envoy? The Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign's voice boomed as he arrived, his fiery eyes blazing like twin suns. His voice rippled across the entire Lotus pathway, awakening sleeping residents. People gathered and whispered in alarm. The night was destined to be sleepless. All eyes turned toward the inn. A radiant glow shot into the sky, piercing the darkness. The brilliance spread across the land, illuminating everything below. A vast holy pressure rose to meet the Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign's might head-on. Which Taoist has arrived? Please come forth and meet me. The Saint Sovereign said gravely, feeling the strength emanating from his unseen opponent. Violet Mist Saint Sovereign stepped into the air, smiling faintly. Tonight, I'm breaking into your Hua heavenly clan. You'd best prepare yourselves to die. So it's you? The Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign sneered. The heavenly court's been hunting for you in vain, and here you are delivering yourself to my doorstep. Surrender now, and I might put in a good word for you with them. Otherwise, you'll suffer the consequences. I heard your Hua heavenly clan once served the Radiant Court. When did you become the heavenly court's lapdogs? Violet Mist Saint Sovereign shot back. A wise bird chooses the tallest tree, the Saint Sovereign replied coolly. The Radiant Court's tree is too small. It can't shelter us anymore. Water flows to higher ground. It's only natural. What's there to criticize? In that case, Violet Mist Saint Sovereign said, allow me to enlighten you. The purple glow surrounding him flared into a blazing violet sun. In the darkness, it burned like a beacon, casting waves of purple light across the world. As Violet Mist Saint Sovereign strode forward through the sky, a rainbow-colored road unfurled beneath his feet. His aura surged, vast as the sea, overwhelming as a purgatory inferno. The Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign refused to back down. The flames of the Vermilion Bird blazed wildly around him, scorching the heavens and burning through the 8 directions. He stood like a god born from a sea of fire. Let's go, Su Zimo said calmly. We're heading to the Hua heavenly clan. Moonlight Fairy and the woman followed closely behind. As for the battle between Violet Mist Saint Sovereign and the Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign, they paid it no mind. The Hua heavenly clan was already on full alert. At the gates stood not the 2 guards from before, but 2 ancient elders, stooped with age yet radiating immense power. The aura that flowed from them was suffocating. The 2 elders of heavenly fire, the woman murmured, her face tightening. They had both been among those who had besieged her earlier. My anger lies with Huitianxiong alone, she said coldly. When the Radiant Court learns of this, none of you will escape its wrath. Turn back now, and I'll see that the Hua heavenly clan as a whole isn't implicated. Don't let one man drag your entire clan to ruin. Envoy, one of the elders said, shaking his head. We know well what we've done over the years. There's no turning back for us. In the past, when envoys like you came, we could smooth things over with a few bribes. But you wouldn't bend, and now you've forced our hand. Once the bow is drawn, there's no taking back the arrow. Moonlight, Su Zimo said, Hold them off. I'll take her inside. The woman was the only one who could contact the Radiant Court, and Su Zimo had to keep her safe. He didn't fear the Hua Heavenly Clan, but if the Heavenly Court intervened as well, dealing with both forces at once would be troublesome. Better to drag the Radiant Court into the chaos. After all, the murkier the water, the better for him. Don't worry, Moonlight Fairy nodded. The two elders were strong, but she was confident she could hold them off for a while. The long moon hung high, cold as ice. Moonlight Fairy soared into the air, her power freezing the land beneath her feet. An icebound city rose around her as she clashed with the two elders in the sky. Su Zimo and the woman exchanged a glance, then quietly advanced into the Hua Heavenly Clan's grounds. The estate stretched endlessly before them, grand halls and towers standing tall like ancient citadels. Even though it was the middle of the night, floating suns of fire hung in the skies, illuminating the entire compound in a flickering orange glow. Yet the place felt eerily silent, lifeless, as though the clan itself were holding its breath. You know where the passage is, right? Su Zimo asked. Of course, the woman replied. When I descended from the Inferno Crucible Heaven, I came through that very passage. But they'll have fortified it heavily. The moment we approach, we'll walk straight into their trap. Just the two of us? Are you sure you want to go? Are you afraid? Su Zimo smiled. It's not fear, she said, shaking her head. But fighting without purpose is meaningless. Come with me, Su Zimo said. I'll see to it that your message reaches the passage. But if the Radiant Court doesn't have the courage to respond, then we may both be in trouble tonight. Don't worry, the woman said with absolute certainty. They'll come. The two continued toward the passage. After about 10 minutes, the air around them grew heavy, the atmosphere thick with killing intent. Su Zimo suddenly halted. What is it? The woman asked. There's a formation ahead, Su Zimo said. Stay close to me. Don't move on your own. Su Zimo waved his hand. Above his head, the traceless compass floated into the air, spinning slowly. Its rotations unraveled the secrets of the formation before them, like silk threads being drawn apart. A fine treasure, the woman said, glancing at the compass with rare admiration. Sell it to me. How about that? You couldn't afford it, Su Zimo replied flatly. His eyes flashed with cold light as the traceless compass released a streak of pure energy that shot into the formation ahead. With a single motion, the compass shattered the countless layers of formations before them. Let's go, Su Zimo said sharply, stepping forward into the formation. The moment they entered, the world around them transformed into a vast sea of fire. Flames roared and crackled, the sound of burning filling the air. It was as if the inferno sought to consume them entirely. The formation shifted ceaselessly. The flames took the shape of ancient celestial trees one moment, then clashing dragons and tigers the next. But Su Zimo strolled through it all as though walking through a garden path, untouched by the fire. The traceless compass above him had already unraveled every hidden mechanism. To him, the grand formation's transformations were no more than a child's game of make-believe. This is the Hua Heavenly Clan's myriad forms heavenly fire formation, the woman explained. It was passed down from the Radiant Court itself, quite a famous formation in its day. I didn't expect it to be so insignificant before you. She looked at Su Zimo with growing curiosity. I find myself increasingly curious about who you really are. My identity has nothing to do with you, Su Zimo replied calmly. Our paths in life will never intersect. Curiosity will only bring you unnecessary trouble. How do you know our paths won't cross? The woman teased. You're heading to the Inferno Crucible Heaven. That's my territory. If you flatter me now, maybe I'll look after you when you get there. Seems your status in the Radiant Court isn't ordinary, Su Zimo said, glancing at her. The woman immediately fell silent, realizing she'd revealed more than she intended. His perception was sharper than she had expected. He'd deduced much from a single offhand remark. Have you ever heard of the ancient gods? Su Zimo asked. In the Inferno Crucible Heaven, Everything revolved around the element of fire. If there were any ancient god connected to that domain, it would be the fire god Zhurong. But Su Zimo had already obtained Zhurong's legacy, which was why he was curious if there were others. I don't know. Never heard of them, the woman said curtly. Su Zimo didn't press the matter further. The two finally emerged from the formation. Before them stretched a crimson passageway that pierced through the heavens themselves. It was impossible to measure its length, while its width spanned only a few hundred meters. Looking closely, they realized the crimson walls were not made of fire or gas, but of countless fiery red runes, interlocked and woven together to form the vast tunnel. This is the Grand Tao Two-World Scripture, the woman said with reverence. It's not a force or a physical thing. It was spoken by our ancestor as a true verse of the Tao. When our Radiant Court first took control of this passage, the path between the two realms was perilous beyond measure. 9 deaths for every life that entered. Even saint sovereigns would perish if caught in a spatial storm. Later, our ancestor recited a single true verse. That verse protected the passage, and only then did it become safe to travel. Holding the flame, Su Zimo murmured under his breath. What did you say? The woman asked, not quite hearing him. Nothing, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. Come on. Let's not keep our hosts waiting. They approached the passage. Soon both of them came to a halt. Before them, the heavens and earth themselves had been sealed by fire and suppression. Within that domain stood 5 figures, 5 saint sovereigns. Of those 5, Su Zimo recognized only one, sage monarch ancient void of the heavenly court, the elder who had joined Radiant Gold in the campaign to destroy the ancient demon realm. The other 4 were strangers to him. Those 3 are ancestors of the Hua heavenly clan, the woman said softly. As for the last one, I don't know him either. Among the 3 Hua heavenly clan ancestors, one stood like a divine bird descended from the sky, sharp-beaked, hawk-eyed, his entire body gleaming with golden light. Wherever he stood, he became the center of the world. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign, the woman explained. He was once the eternal flame bird that hovered outside the Radiant Court. It said that after a true Golden Crow died, the Lord drew upon its bloodline and granted it to that bird. I never thought it would ascend to sainthood, let alone betray the Radiant Court. Disgraceful. The second ancestor was shrouded completely in a long, flowing robe. The garment enveloped his entire body, revealing nothing but the chilling aura that surrounded him. An aura so cold it seemed capable of freezing the heavens themselves. To witness such icy power within a clan devoted to fire was nothing short of bizarre. That's the Hell Sovereign, the woman said. As a child, he once ventured into the Mirage Tide's heaven, where he obtained the spectral ghost flame. Though it's a form of fire, it burns with the essence of extreme cold. 8,000 years ago, when he ascended to sainthood, he took the title Hell Sovereign. Su Zimo nodded slightly, then turned his gaze to the third man. This one was an elderly figure clad in pristine white robes. His silver hair drifted gently in the wind, his face kind and serene, without the slightest trace of murderous intent. That is the Alchemy Sovereign, the woman explained. The Hua heavenly clan specializes in fire for battle and destruction. Few ever use it for alchemy. Only this Alchemy Sovereign is different. He's said to have come from a lower world. After joining the Hua heavenly clan, he served as an offering elder. At that time, he was known as the Alchemy Emperor. After becoming a saint sovereign, he gave up his position and naturally became one of the clan's ancestors. The Alchemy Emperor, Su Zimo murmured. An old friend, then. He thought back to the eastern continent of the primordial heartlands, where the Alchemy Emperor had stood alongside the Formation Emperor, belonging to the Dan Imperial clan. It was a memory from ages past. He never expected that the Dan Imperial clan's ancestor, after ascending to the 9 heavens, would join the Hua heavenly clan. But upon reflection, it made sense. The Hua heavenly clan drew their lineage from the Radiant Court, the origin of all worldly flames. As an alchemist, the Alchemy Emperor's combat prowess was never his strength. It was quite possible that his path to sainthood owed much to the Hua heavenly clan's support. Looking upon these three figures, Su Zimo finally understood the true depth of the Hua heavenly clan's power. They were even stronger than he'd imagined. For countless ages, they had stood unchallenged within the Lotus Pathway. No wonder none dared to provoke them. They controlled the only passage to the Inferno Crucible heaven, and yet no one complained. Their power alone was deterrent enough. Su Zimo smiled faintly. He now understood the Hua heavenly clan hadn't truly submitted to the heavenly court. It wasn't allegiance, but mutual exploitation. He had once assumed that their new patriarch had simply chosen to side with the heavenly court. But now he saw the truth. Their so-called alliance with the heavenly court was nothing more than an attempt to break free from the Radiant Court's dominion. The Hua heavenly clan possessed such formidable strength, and yet they still lived under another's shadow, bound to obey the Radiant Court. And the Radiant Court itself resided within the Inferno Crucible heaven, distant from the Nine Heavens' central authority, Heavenly Court. As the saying goes, when the emperor is far away, the heavens grow high. It was only natural that rebellion would take root. Still, to truly stand against the Radiant Court was no simple matter. The Hua heavenly clan lacked the confidence to do so alone. Then the Heavenly Court appeared, and the two sides, each seeking to use the other, found perfect alignment. "How interesting," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Since you've come here." The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign spoke first, his voice cold and sharp. "Then stay here forever. The Hua heavenly clan is not a place anyone can come and go as they please." "Golden Crow Saint Sovereign, are you not afraid your clan will be annihilated?" The Inferno Crucible envoy said, her gaze icy. "Of course I fear annihilation," he replied calmly. "But the Radiant Court has grown complacent for too long. They cannot destroy us. As long as we take you down and gain a little more time, the Hua heavenly clan may yet rival the Radiant Court." "Delusional," the woman snapped. "You were once nothing more than a mere vast bright bird. A lamp used to light the gates of the Radiant Court, a worm playing at being divine. Have you forgotten that the Radiant Court's ancestral elders still live?" At those words, the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign fell silent. He truly did not know the depths of the Radiant Court's power. Back then, he hadn't even been qualified to set foot inside its sacred halls, merely a creature used for illumination. That, in truth, was his deepest fear. "Times have changed," said the fifth Saint Sovereign, the one neither Su Zimo nor the woman recognized. He gave a chilling smile. "Radiant Court, don't forget the Heavenly Court's presence. The affairs of the Nine Heavens are no longer yours to command." "And who might you be?" the woman asked, her eyes narrowing. "This," said Ancient Void, stepping forward to introduce, "is the leader of the Burning Heaven Demon Realm, the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign." "Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign?" the woman echoed, frowning in thought. The name stirred faint recognition. Then she chuckled lightly. "Ah, so it's the stray dog from years past. Ran off to the accursed ancient demon realm, licked his wounds for a few years, and now thinks himself mighty again? You go too far." The Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign snarled, his face twisting. "Today we'll strike together. This will mark the beginning of your Radiant Court's downfall." "Careful," the woman said mockingly. "If you keep spouting nonsense, you might bite your own tongue. I'll give the Heavenly Court this, they usually choose capable allies. How disappointing that they've lowered themselves to work with a mediocrity like you." "Enough talk, Inferno Crucible envoy," the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign interjected coolly. "Let our strength speak instead." "Agreed," the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign shouted. "Though the two of you together are hardly enough to fill our teeth. Infernal Lord, surrender now," Ancient Void commanded sternly. "And I may spare your life. Come with me to the Heavenly Court to repent." High above the heavens, 5 Saint Sovereigns loomed, their combined pressure suffocating. Su Zimo smiled faintly and said to the woman, "Leave them to me. Go to the passage and send word to the Radiant Court." "Are you sure you can handle this?" she asked. Su Zimo waved his hand. A spatial rift opened, a portal to the god world, and from it stepped Paimon and the others. Overwhelming infernal energy poured forth, engulfing the sky like a tidal wave. "You're from the ancient demon race?" the woman exclaimed in shock. "Go," Su Zimo said calmly. "I told you, I'll handle it." In the heavens, Ancient Void's face hardened. "So, the demon race hides this deeply," he said coldly. "You've already gathered 4 infernal archons. Enough talk. If it's war you want, come," roared the bull demon with bloodshot eyes. "So be it," Ancient Void bellowed. "Today, we end this once and for all, purging the demon race and eradicating the source of all evil from this world." His roar echoed across the skies as battle erupted. Holy might tore through the air, shaking the clouds and shattering the heavens. Su Zimo faced off against the burning heaven demon sovereign, while Paimon and the 4 infernal archons engaged the other saint sovereigns. In an instant, the Hua heavenly clan's domain became the heart of a cataclysmic battlefield. "Boy," the burning heaven demon sovereign sneered. "You have some nerve. A mere grand emperor dares challenge me?" "You're only a newly ascended saint sovereign," Su Zimo said evenly. Though he had yet to open his 10th meridian gate, in all other aspects he already matched a saint sovereign, mastering both primal Tao and life-death soul. Against a newly advanced opponent, he saw no reason to fear. "Then taste my flames of destruction," the demon's sovereign roared. The primal Taos of fire surged around him, and his flames were no ordinary blaze. They were the legendary burning heaven flames, one of the mythical alien fires. A torrent of fire rushed toward Su Zimo like a flaming tidal wave. Su Zimo gave a short snort. The primal Tao of wind gathered around his body, and an apocalypse storm erupted from him. The heavens darkened. The earth quaked. Buildings crumbled and trees were torn from their roots as the roaring storm swept across the land. Under its power, the oncoming torrent of fire was blown backward in defiance of its master. "Not good!" the burning heaven demon sovereign shouted, hastily retracting his flames. "Seems I underestimated you," he said grimly. "You talk too much," Su Zimo replied coldly. He unleashed 2 divine arts at once, Heaven-Earth Dharma Codex and the God-Devil Creation Atlas. In an instant, his divine soul and physical form expanded to towering heights, over 100,000 meters tall. He stood like a primordial giant, his head nearly brushing the top of the 5 elements god lotus above. "Today, I'll cut you down," Su Zimo said, "and take this as my trial into sainthood." His eyes burned with demonic light, and behind him the shadow of a tyrant loomed, magnified to colossal size. He raised his blade, like a hand plucking sun and moon from the sky, and swung. With that single slash, infernal energy surged, and the heavens themselves trembled. The burning heaven demon sovereign's hands erupted with fire as he tried to block the blow barehanded. A deafening explosion followed. Flames and blade intent clashed violently, scorching the air itself. The strike drove the demon sovereign downward, his body straining under the crushing force. "Break!" he roared, his voice echoing like thunder. "With only this, you dare call yourself demon sovereign?" Su Zimo said coldly. His blade intent grew even stronger, power flowing endlessly through him. The demon sovereign resisted desperately, but finally, a massive explosion shook the battlefield. The ground split apart as the burning heaven demon sovereign was hurled into the earth, carving a deep rift through the Hua heavenly clan's territory. "Eightfold heaven split," Su Zimo shouted again. He gave his foe no chance to recover. He summoned the heaven-split blade intent, lifting his weapon once more, and brought it down with unstoppable might. "Damn it!" The demon sovereign's face turned pale. Behind him, his true fate emerged, a colossal demonic spider with 8 legs and a carapace burning with black fire. From its fanged mouth spewed endless strands of web, layering over and over into an enormous net. As the blade intent roared downward, the dense web of threads blocked the way like an impenetrable barrier. A thunderous boom shook the heavens. The web shattered layer by layer beneath the fury of the blade. Though it delayed the strike only briefly, that moment was enough for the burning heaven demon sovereign to retreat at full speed, widening the distance between himself and Su Zimo. He stared at Su Zimo, his expression grim. Strange, you're just a grand emperor. How can you wield the power of primal Tao, and even the essence of a life-death soul? Are you ready to die yet? Su Zimo asked calmly, pointing his blade toward him. Who dies is far from certain. The demon's sovereign snorted coldly. Blazing fire surged around him, the black flames of destruction burning with terrifying intensity. Even the void itself began to melt under their heat. Explosive flame annihilation. The demon sovereign raised both hands, infernal energy flooding the sky until the heavens darkened. Beneath that black canopy, billions of fireballs condensed one after another, like meteors heralding the world's end. Countless meteors rained down at once, crashing toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. With his heaven-earth Dharma Codex active, his body had grown immense. There was no room to evade such a barrage. If I can't dodge, he said coldly, then I'll just crush them all. With his right hand gripping his blade and his left clenched into a fist, he didn't wait for the meteors to fall. Instead, he leapt straight into the heavens, charging into the descending storm. Thunderous explosions boomed endlessly above. Meteor after meteor shattered, breaking into fragments of scorched stone. Blades cleaved through the heavens. Fists shattered falling stars. From afar, it looked as though the entire sky itself had cracked apart. Ordinarily, the falling fragments should have destroyed everything below, razing the land. Yet those within the Lotus pathway were untouched, for the five elements God Lotus shielded them, intercepting the debris before it could touch the ground. In mere moments, Su Zimo had obliterated every last meteor. Standing proudly in midair, his eyes burned with resolve as he stared at the burning heaven demon sovereign. The blade in his hand, Shadow Tyrant, sang with a shrill, resonant cry. From his right hand poured a sea of blade energy, an infernal prison of pure slaughter, all directed toward the demon sovereign. Don't be so hasty, the demon sovereign sneered. Forming a hand seal, he called upon the remnants of the shattered meteors. From their fragments, clusters of black fire began to gather once more. Black Lotus explosion, infernal flame dragon surge. His shout shook the void. The countless flames of destruction coalesced into the shape of a massive black lotus. The lotus faced Su Zimo, and from its heart burst a torrent of infernal flame, like a dragon's breath. The blast erased the void itself, reducing heaven and earth to nothingness. Su Zimo raised Shadow Tyrant before him, meeting the torrent head-on. But the flood of flame was unstoppable. It slammed into him with devastating force, flinging him backward through the sky like a shooting star piercing the darkness. Chasing me only to seek death, the demon's sovereign scoffed. He turned his gaze toward the other battlefields, preparing to lend aid, but froze mid-step. Cold sweat beaded on his brow. Before him, Su Zimo stood completely unscathed. You? How? You're wondering how I survived, aren't you? Su Zimo smiled. That was merely my avatar. Pathetic, you really thought you'd killed me. So what? The demon's sovereign sneered. If I can kill your clone, I can kill your true body as well. You really think so? Su Zimo replied lightly. Power surged within him, the might of heaven itself shaking the world. Above his head appeared the three gates, reaching toward the heavens. Among the 10 primordial god scriptures, many could be combined. Now, the Aryan swastika god seal formed in the center of his palm. The instant the sacred symbol appeared, the sky began to twist and warp. He released it, an overwhelming sigil of annihilation flying straight toward the demon sovereign's chest. The burning heaven demon sovereign tried to dodge, but the swastika seal pursued him relentlessly, impossible to evade. Damn it! He cursed, forced to turn and meet the blow head-on. The seal detonated before him, and the resulting blast sent him hurtling backward through the air. Before he could recover, Su Zimo's next strike came, A single finger pointed forward. Creation-devouring God finger. The strike pierced straight through the demon sovereign's forehead. A scream tore from his throat as his body was flung violently away. Su Zimo turned back and saw the Inferno Crucible envoy seated cross-legged before the spatial passage, runes of light streaming from her form into the portal. Satisfied, he allowed himself a brief smile. Though grievously wounded, the burning heaven demon sovereign did not die. He staggered to his feet, the blood on his brow hardening into a dark scar. His gaze toward Su Zimo was now full of dread. "What's wrong?" Su Zimo asked. "Still want to fight?" The demon sovereign looked toward the other battlefields and shouted, "Everyone, at this rate we'll be fighting until eternity. Use the trump card." At his command, the other saint sovereigns of the Hua heavenly clan broke away from Paimon and the others. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign spoke first. "Activate the primal ancestral flame. The primal ancestral flame is the foundation of our entire clan," protested the Alchemy Sovereign urgently. "Unless it's absolutely necessary, I say we leave it untouched." "What's there to fear?" said the Hell Sovereign. "If we don't use it today, we'll never destroy them." The Alchemy Sovereign hesitated, thinking more carefully, then turned to Ancient Void. "Ancient Void, since our two forces have joined hands, surely the Heavenly Court didn't send you alone?" "Rest assured," Ancient Void said confidently. "Reinforcements from the Heavenly Court are on their way, but they'll appear only at the crucial moment. For now, ignite the primal ancestral flame. Today we've laid a net of heaven and earth. Even a true immortal descending to the mortal world couldn't save them." Reassured by his words, the members of the Hua heavenly clan nodded grimly. "Awaken the primal ancestral flame," the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign commanded. Hidden clansmen of the Hua heavenly clan rushed toward the sacred fire grounds. There, they broke the ancient seal upon the fire source. Instantly, a column of scorching flame burst into the heavens, reaching all the way to the roots of the five elements God Lotus above. It was the clan's supreme treasure, the foundation upon which their lineage had stood for countless millennia. Without it, the Hua heavenly clan could never have survived, let alone thrived. Now that the primal ancestral flame was awakened, every clansman felt their blood boil, their power surge as though their very essence was ablaze. The primal ancestral flame awakens, heaven and earth shall burn to ashes. All disciples of the Hua heavenly clan, bow before the source. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign's voice echoed across the entire clan. All around, members of the Hua heavenly clan dropped to their knees in reverence. In the void above, the flames coalesced into the shape of a human face. An ancient, resonant laugh came from its fiery mouth. "Golden Crow brat, for what purpose have you awakened this old man?" "Senior, I ask that you lend us your strength to kill a few people," said the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign. The Hua heavenly clan's primal ancestral flame had long since developed sentience. It resided upon the five elements God Lotus and had formed a pact with the clan. Thus, in times of great peril, it would lend its power to aid them. "Oh, you've run into opponents even you can't handle?" The primal ancestral flame chuckled. "It seems they're troublesome indeed." Its fiery gaze swept across the battlefield, and gradually its tone grew serious. "Ancient demons." It uttered the word with a rare solemnity. "In those ancient times, when I was but a tiny spark born of heaven and earth, I heard the legends of the demon race. They once ruled over this world, but their infernal lord sought to defy the heavens, and that glorious empire was lost forever. The ancient demons have fallen far indeed. Having existed for untold ages, few things could still stir the primal ancestral flame. Yet the demon race was one of them, for that race had once reshaped the entire world. In the long history of the 9 heavens, such feats were exceedingly rare. Senior, now that our Hua heavenly clan stands united with the heavenly court, what need have we to fear ancient demons?" said the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign with defiance. "Of course," the primal ancestral flame laughed. "This is the heavenly court's era. The demon race now lives with its tail between its legs. A mere wisp of fire dares to boast so loudly? Roared Redblade Bull Demon. Even if my lord fell, he was still one who dared to challenge the heavens. You, an insignificant spirit bound to a lotus, may strut for now, but when my kind returns, you'll be nothing more than a dog wagging its tail for mercy. At that, the fiery face twisted in anger. It seems today, I'll have to exterminate some ancient demons. Who exterminates whom is far from decided, Celestial Devourer replied sharply. Everyone else, guard the flanks. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign barked, his gaze locked on Suzimo. Infernal Lord, do you dare fight me one-on-one? To deal with the likes of you, my lord need not act. Paimon growled, stepping forward. Stand down, Paimon, Suzimo ordered with a wave of his hand. Then his voice spread across the entire Hua estate, calm yet resounding. Children of the Hua heavenly clan, prepare coffins for your ancestor. His eyes fell on the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign. Tell me, have you made peace with death? Humph. Once I slay you, infernal lord, my Hua heavenly clan will be immortalized in glory. The Saint Sovereign retorted. Senior, aid me, he cried. Behind him, the flames of the Golden Crow burned brighter, their heat spreading across the 8 wildernesses. Very well, the primal ancestral flame roared in response. Its essence transformed into a torrent of flame, merging into the Saint Sovereign's true fate. The Golden Crow within him shrieked sharply as golden and crimson flames intertwined, its form becoming almost alive. These flames are too weak, Suzimo said, shaking his head. If the opponent had wielded another element, Suzimo might have been cautious without invoking the previous Infernal Lord's power. But against fire he had nothing to fear, for he possessed the legacy of the ancient fire god, Zhurong. The flame of Zhurong, one of the mightiest flames in existence, could consume all other fires. When the ancient gods sought enlightenment, Zhurong had perfected his path through fire. The Hua heavenly clan's mastery was impressive, yet compared to the Radiant Court, compared to the ancient fire god himself, it was laughably small. The cry of the Golden Crow resounded through the heavens, its radiant wings blazing like twin suns. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign himself glowed with golden brilliance, his body like a living inferno. Go! He roared. Above, the enormous Golden Crow swooped down upon Suzimo, its power so fierce that the heavens seemed to melt in its wake. Yet Suzimo only smiled faintly. In his hand, the flame of Zhurong flickered restlessly, as though impatient to feed. Go on, eat your fill, Suzimo murmured with a grin. The divine flame shot forward. When the 2 fires met, the cataclysmic explosion everyone expected never came. Instead, the flame of Zhurong clung to the Golden Crow like a living parasite. The crow itself was formed entirely of flame, its body a manifestation of fire. But as the Zhurong flame touched it, it seemed as though the godfire was burning the very essence of the Golden Crow's fire. Sensing mortal danger, the Golden Crow shrieked in panic, thrashing its wings wildly across the sky in a desperate attempt to shake off the devouring flame. What is that? Someone muttered in shock. What kind of sorcery is this? Sorcery? Suzimo scoffed. You've likely never seen a true flame before. The fire of your Hua heavenly clan is nothing more than a petty trick. You dare call yourselves the masters of fire? You've mistaken your flickering farts for the fire of heaven. Impossible! Cried the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign, staggering backward. My Golden Crow fire, fused with the primal ancestral flame, should rival even the Radiant Court itself. How could it be consumed? But in the sky above, the Golden Crow's struggles grew weaker and weaker, until finally, it was devoured entirely. The flame of Zhurong, still unsatisfied, pulsed once before returning lazily to Suzimo's palm. Could that truly be the legendary flame of the fire god, Zhurong? The Inferno Crucible envoy, who had appeared unnoticed, stared in astonishment. Has word reached the Radiant Court? Suzimo asked. Rest assured, she replied. The Radiant Court is enraged. It won't be long before they descend upon this place. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on the flame in his hand. You've inherited the fire god's legacy? You people of the Radiant Court are well informed, Suzumo said with a faint smile. Of course, our ancestor was once the fire gods. She stopped herself abruptly, realizing what she was about to reveal. Her expression shifted, and she said instead, "You're quite fortunate. You asked me before about the ancient gods," Suzumo said. "Are you perhaps searching for all their inheritances? Let's deal with the current situation first," he added before she could answer. High above, the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign's expression twisted in disbelief. He still couldn't accept that his ultimate attack had been so easily neutralized. "This Golden Crow is yours," Suzumo said coldly, raising his hand. "So I'll return it to you." He tossed the flame of Zhurong forward. In midair, the divine flame transformed once again into the form of a golden crow, lunging at the Saint Sovereign. "Damn you!" the Saint Sovereign bellowed. He poured every ounce of power into his right fist, striking the fiery bird head-on and shattering it in an explosion of sparks. But as the flames scattered, he froze, staring at his own hand. His fist was burning. That was impossible. He had cultivated fire his entire life. Fire should have been as natural to him as water to a fish. For him, fire had always been a great nourishment, his very path. Yet now that same fire was burning him. "What kind of flame is that?" the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign demanded, frowning. "Do you think I'll tell you?" Suzumo replied with a faint smile. "I'd rather you die not knowing. Whatever techniques you have, use them all. My flame is already starving. In the Tao of Fire, our Hua Heavenly Clan has never lost," the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign said coldly. "We never have and we never will. To lose in the Tao of Fire, to anyone but the Radiant Court, was intolerable, especially to someone like Suzumo, who clearly wasn't even a true fire cultivator. He had dedicated his entire life to fire. Such humiliation was beyond what he could allow. "Children of the Hua Heavenly Clan, follow my lead," he shouted. "Activate the myriad flames as one technique. Merge your bodies with the fire and kill this man." Hearing their ancestors' order, none of the clan's disciples dared to hesitate. They all sat cross-legged, circulating the flames within their bodies. The fire spread along precise meridian paths, flowing through every limb and bone. Even the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign and the Hell Sovereign sat down, joining the formation. A great invisible web seemed to connect every member of the Hua Heavenly Clan. At each point of that web, a flame flickered, the life flame of every clansman. The Alchemy Sovereign hesitated at the sight, a troubled look crossing his face. He knew exactly what this ritual was, and that was why his heart wavered. "Alchemy Sovereign," Suzumo said, waving his hand, "we're both from the primordial heartlands. Take my advice, leave now. I'll spare your life." "It seems fellow Taoist Su is confident of victory," the Alchemy Sovereign said, shaking his head. "But the Hua Heavenly Clan has shown me great kindness. I'm not one to forget my debts. If I turn my back today, my Tao heart will falter, and I will never advance again." As he spoke, he too sat cross-legged, the pill flame behind him flickering. With each pulse, his aura weakened slightly, while the Golden Crow Saint Sovereigns grew stronger. "What a ruthless technique," murmured the Inferno Crucible envoy, "to merge 10,000 divine flames into one." "You see it," Suzumo said with a smile. "The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign becomes the vessel, gathering all their strength into himself. And this isn't just any fire, it's each person's life flame. If the Saint Sovereign returns their life flames afterward," the woman said gravely, "they'll be severely injured but survive. But if he doesn't, every one of them will die." "It's a gamble," Suzumo said lightly. "They're betting that this will kill me. They don't realize they're only hastening their own deaths." "What are you going to do?" she asked. "It's time to use the gift the Formation Emperor left us," Suzumo said, his grin widening. With a flick of his wrist, a crimson formation plate appeared in his hand, the heaven-slaying Blood River Formation. This was the Formation Emperor's proudest creation, even surpassing his famed Hexagenesis Immortal Formation. It embodied pure, unrestrained slaughter. The Formation Emperor had once feared its killing intent was too overwhelming, so he sealed it beneath a celestial vein, never allowing it to see the light of day. He had later gifted it to Suzimo, first, to repay him for guidance in formation theory, and second, because they were both from the primordial heartlands. Above all, he did not wish for his life's work to be forgotten. This formation had cost him countless years of effort, and he wanted to see it shine gloriously at least once. With this formation, I'll erase the Hua Heavenly Clan, Suzimo said. Let it shake all of demons in heaven. Such a fate, worthy indeed of its name. As his words fell, he threw the formation plate into the air. A cracking sound echoed, kacha, kacha, as deadly energy burst forth. The formation expanded hundreds of times over, enveloping the entire heavenly fire estate in an instant. From within surged the blood river of execution, endlessly churning, reeking of corrosion, filth, and death. As the river flowed, the screams of the Hua disciples pierced the air. From the outside, the formation didn't look particularly destructive. There were no explosions, no apocalyptic fury. But wherever the blood river passed, everything it touched corroded away. Flesh melted, bones turned to ash, leaving not even a trace behind. What a terrifying blood river! Ancient Void murmured in awe. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign stood up from the myriad flames as one formation, staring in horror. Countless clansmen perished before his eyes, devoured by the river of blood. His expression twisted in shock and rage. You deserve to die, he shouted, trembling with fury, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at Suzimo. D. Suzimo echoed with a laugh. Ask Ancient Void beside you, how many in the heavenly court have wished me dead? Even their holy progenitor likely prays for my demise. And yet, here I stand. Do you know why? He smiled coldly. Because they can't kill me. If you want me dead, you'll just have to wait in line. Having performed the myriad flames as one, the Hell Sovereign and the Alchemy Sovereign were already on the verge of collapse. They could only watch helplessly as the blood river consumed the clan. Only the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign still burned with power. Flames roared around him like crashing waves, scorching heaven and earth as he desperately tried to shield his people. But within the formation, the blood river was endless, surging from every direction. He could not protect them all. Then, in a frenzy, he turned his power against the formation itself, trying to destroy it from within. But the creator of this formation was none other than the Formation Emperor himself, the man who, when he forged the Hexagenesis Immortal Formation, had proclaimed that no formation of his could be broken from the inside. The heaven-slaying Blood River Formation inherited that same trait. Of course, no formation was truly unbreakable. With enough power, the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign could destroy it, but not quickly. And by the time he did, the Hua Heavenly Clan would already be annihilated. Why? He muttered in despair. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We joined with the Heavenly Court. They promised us victory. Even the Radiant Court could not touch me. When the ancient demon realm fell, they swore the God-fiend Abyss Heaven would belong to us. The Hua Heavenly Clan was to be its ruler. That was what the Heavenly Court had promised them. But now, watching his clanmates dissolve into nothing within the Blood River, all his dreams turned to ashes. Suddenly, the Saint Sovereign's eyes widened. He turned toward Ancient Void. When will your Heavenly Court arrive? Will they just sit and watch while my Hua Heavenly Clan is destroyed? Patience, Brother Golden Crow, Ancient Void said calmly. The Heavenly Court will come, but they must ensure that nothing can go wrong. We must strike the Infernal Lord down in one decisive blow. If he's allowed to rise again, he'll become a disaster. Hearing Ancient Void's indifferent reply, the Golden Crow Saint Sovereign let out a bitter laugh. So, to destroy the Infernal Lord, the annihilation of our Hua Heavenly Clan means nothing to you, right? In war, someone must always make sacrifices, Ancient Void said calmly. But future generations will remember the Hua Heavenly Clan's sacrifice. That alone makes it worthwhile. If someone must be sacrificed, then why not your heavenly court? Why us? The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign demanded. But Ancient Void only closed his eyes and remained silent. Dealing with tigers sooner or later, you'll end up as their food, Suzimo said, shaking his head. Your Hua Heavenly Clan ruled its own territory as kings. Wouldn't it have been better to stay that way? Why meddle in these affairs? You're not even qualified to play this game. If that's how it is, then fine. If we die, everyone dies. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign's voice turned feral, his eyes burning with madness. The flames around his body surged violently. With my life, I rekindle the fire lotus, he shouted. At once, every trace of life energy within him, along with his flames, was stripped away, transformed into countless red motes of light that sank into the earth. The others didn't understand, but the Hell Sovereign and the Alchemy Sovereign clearly realized what he was doing. Jinwu, stop! You can't do this, they shouted. What's wrong with it? The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign said hoarsely. Let them all die with me. It'll be a fitting funeral for my clan. Finally, as his life force was completely drained, his body grew more and more translucent until a light breeze blew through, and he scattered like a dandelion in the wind. A Saint Sovereign had perished utterly and irrevocably, beyond the reach of even soul resurrection. What did that man just do? The female envoy of the Inferno Crucible asked. A sacrifice, Suzimo replied grimly. He's summoning something. Summoning? The Hua Heavenly Clan has already called forth the primal ancestral flame. What else could they summon? She asked, puzzled. But a moment later, realization struck her. Her eyes met Suzimo's, and both spoke in unison. The five elements God Lotus. Sure enough, as their words fell, the ground beneath the lotus pathway began to quake violently. The earth cracked open into countless fissures, from which fiery red leaves began to rise and dance. All around, the very world seemed to change. Above their heads, the vast lotus petals that had been tightly closed for countless years began to part, revealing, for the first time, a stretch of deep blue sky. The air throughout the lotus pathway grew thick with the power of the five elements. But among them, the fire element reigned supreme. After all, the Hua Heavenly Clan had nurtured it for countless years. Fire-aligned energy filled the void. Just one breath of it scorched the lungs with unbearable heat. The five elements God Lotus was awakening. Its power surged outward, rippling like shockwaves through the land. A deafening series of explosions echoed throughout the lotus pathway. Everyone, get out of here. The five elements God Lotus is going berserk, Ancient Void shouted, realizing the danger. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign had truly gone mad. He wanted to take everyone down with him. Ancient Void rose into the air, trying to flee the lotus pathway, but it was already too late. The instant anyone tried to escape into the sky, the colossal lotus leaves swooped down and smashed them back to the ground. The five elements God Lotus's power had already surpassed that of an ordinary sage monarch. Not that it was as strong as an infinite Tao powerhouse, but against an ordinary sage monarch, they wouldn't even stand a chance. It was, after all, a divine lotus born of heaven and earth, standing in this realm since ancient times. Now that it had awakened, its might was beyond compare. The Alchemy Sovereign let out a long, weary sigh. He knew that whatever the outcome, the Hua Heavenly Clan was finished. The awakening of the five elements God Lotus continued. The entire lotus pathway was sealed tight. Not only the saints but even the native creatures of this land were thrown into chaos, running in terror like headless ants. What do we do? The female envoy of the Inferno Crucible asked Suzimo. Relax. This five elements God Lotus won't cause much trouble, Suzimo said calmly. My only concern is whether your Radiant Court shows up. Otherwise, I'll have to deal with it myself. You're confident you can handle the five elements God Lotus? She asked. If it were truly the five elements god lotus, it might cause me a little trouble, Suzumo said with a faint smile. But would you lose? Nah, I'd win. He wasn't wrong. The other four elements had been completely suppressed. Only fire dominated the lotus now. It was more accurate to call it fire lotus now. The entire lotus pathway boiled like a cauldron. Many ordinary cultivators couldn't withstand the heat and were burned alive, reduced to ash. Then, enormous lotus leaves began to descend from the void above. Those too slow to dodge were instantly wrapped up and incinerated into nothingness. Move! Get out of the way! Cries of panic echoed everywhere as the lotus pathway descended into ruin. No one wanted to be caught by the deadly lotus leaves. What now? The Inferno Crucible envoy asked again. Find the five elements god lotus true body, Suzumo said. At this point, he couldn't be bothered with Ancient Void or the others. He put away the heaven-slaying blood river formation and led the woman toward the northern end of the lotus pathway, where a terrifying aura was rapidly intensifying. The closer they drew, the stronger that pressure became, each wave heavier than the last, like crashing tides heralding the awakening of some ancient being. As they neared, the lotus leaves grew denser and faster, weaving together into an inescapable net. There was no dodging now. Suzumo gripped the Shadow Tyrant blade tightly. If he couldn't evade, he would carve a path through. Beside him, the Inferno Crucible envoy was engulfed in golden fire, its radiance fierce and domineering. The approaching lotus leaves ignited and disintegrated before they could touch her. Together, they advanced until they reached the northernmost edge of the lotus pathway. There, before them, an otherworldly lotus was breaking through the earth. Though the five elements god lotus spanned the entire region, creating the lotus pathway itself, its true core, the source of its life, was this single divine blossom before them. Sensing two humans before it, the five elements god lotus trembled with fury. Five elements annihilation. Countless lotus blossoms manifested in the air, each petal carrying the power of the five elements. But once again, the fire element reigned supreme. Petals that should have been sacred and pure now burned crimson, as the five elements' power descended from the heavens, forming a force of absolute destruction. Watching the countless white lotuses coiling and surging forward, Suzumo hadn't moved a finger yet when the woman beside him spoke up. You focus on dealing with those lotuses. Leave the rest to me. Solar fire flared and boiled, transforming into a golden battlesuit. Now clad in that golden armor, the woman's eyes burned with molten light. A fierce force seemed to twist the very void. In that moment she looked every bit a war goddess. She rose directly into the air to face the oncoming lotuses. All the flames braided together into a great net that instantly melted every lotus it touched. A moment later, the crackling of burning echoed. The flowers turned to ash.
Amazing, Suzumo remarked.
You're still a step behind me, the woman replied calmly. Although she had reached the Saint Sovereign realm, Suzumo was only at the Sovereign Lord stage, one step short of Saint Sovereign. At present she couldn't be sure she could best him. Once Suzumo ascended to Saint Sovereign, his power would spike dramatically. Before she could relax, however, a towering lotus root shot down from the sky and lashed at her. With a deafening boom, the void shattered and the woman's figure was hurled backward. Impressive, she said gravely as she sprang back to her feet. Looking up, they saw the five elements god lotus had detached from the earth and was now floating in the void. It resembled an enormous octopus with countless claws and tendrils. Scores of rootstocks drifted in midair. Each alone seemed to wield the strength of a saint sovereign. When those roots surged, even with her prepared defense, the woman was forced to retreat bit by bit. Defeating the five elements god lotus, or even approaching it, seemed impossible. Moreover, the lotus had over 100 stalks. Earlier, when she had fought it, just 3 of those roots had nearly overwhelmed her. We can't beat it, the woman said to Suzumo, frankness in her voice. Even if we team up and call your infernal archons, we still can't win. Her experience told her this was true. Yes, under normal circumstances we really can't, Suzumo agreed. Unless he used the Infernal Lord's power, they would be outmatched. The five elements God Lotus had already surpassed the Saint Sovereign level. Only an infinite Tao cultivator could contend with it. Normal circumstances? The woman blinked, surprised. What do you mean by abnormal? We can't handle the five elements God Lotus as it should be. Su Zimo smiled. But look at what it's become. Does it still look like a five elements God Lotus to you? The woman paused, then realization dawned. The lotus had grown in the lotus pathway for so long under the care of the Hua heavenly clan that its five-element energies had likely become unbalanced. The lotus's strength came from mastery of the five elements. Chaos divides into yin and yang. Yin and yang produce the five elements, and that power was among the world's strongest. If the five elements were unstable, the lotus could be weakened manyfold. What do we do? The woman asked. If it likes fire, then let it eat its fill, Su Zimo said. He waved his right hand and the flame of Zhurong burst alight. The flame of Zhurong tore through the void like a meteor and struck the five elements God Lotus. Strangely, though the flame of Zhurong was a mighty primal fire, it did no harm. Upon contact, the flames were entirely absorbed into the lotus. That was the terrifying thing about the five elements God Lotus. It could automatically draw in elemental power from the heavens and earth. Let it absorb, give it more, Su Zimo shouted. He poured a continuous stream of flame of Zhurong into the lotus. The woman reacted and unleashed her sun god flame as well. The flame of Zhurong fused with her sun god flame and flowed into the lotus. As it absorbed more and more of the flames, the five elements God Lotus's aura swelled. It seemed only more joyous for it. Its countless roots ceased attacking and swayed instead. The two of them began to feel the strain. Sweat beaded on their brows. Will that work? The woman asked, watching the lotus's growing momentum. If they continued like this, the balance might tip against them. Su Zimo remained silent. At that moment, the five elements God Lotus suddenly became unstable. Its core trembled and let out agonized roars as its body convulsed. The rootstocks themselves seemed to catch fire, glowing crimson and burning fiercely. The lotus had been entirely consumed by the fire attribute. The other four elements vanished without a trace. It no longer needed Su Zimo to strike. The lotus began to collapse on its own. Succeeded, Su Zimo breathed out. The roaring flames continued to burn. Though the lotus struggled, it was to no avail. Cut down the core blossom and the lotus pathway will be over, Su Zimo said. How are you so sure it can't withstand this? The woman asked curiously. If things were normal, not even dozens of us could force the lotus to ignite itself like this, Su Zimo said with a smile. We have to thank the Hua heavenly clan. Over tens of thousands of years in their care, the lotus's five-element balance has long since degraded. The lotus itself is powerful enough to suppress the internal fire, but what we're doing isn't burning it directly. We're just going with the flow and drawing out the latent fire within it. As he spoke, Su Zimo did not stop moving. His shadow tyrant unsheathed, and boundless blade intent soared into the sky. The blade intent tore through the air and split the heavens. When the infinite tide of blade intent had gathered to a critical degree, Su Zimo bellowed. The blade intent fell like an endless torrent, cleaving through everything. With a thunderous boom, the world fell silent. All the lotus's rootstocks instantaneously turned to dust. Deprived of the support of the five elements, the stalks themselves possessed little strength. The blade intent left a rift in the firmament. The five elements God Lotus was swallowed up completely as if in its final convulsion. A flash of heaven-searing flame passed by, and the blade intent gradually faded. The core lotus was utterly annihilated. Crackling noises continued to ring out. Everyone looked around and saw that the vast lotus pathway had been shattered in an instant. The residents, who had been panicking, stood bewildered as they watched. Su Zimo looked in the direction of the Hua heavenly clan and stepped into the void, moving away. Neither the burning heaven demon sovereign nor ancient void sage monarch could hide the drastic change in their expressions as they watched Su Zimo step across the sky toward them. Each of them immediately pulled back, desperate to flee, but Paimon and the others had already cut off every route of escape. Only the Hell Sovereign and the Alchemy Sovereign remained motionless. They sat blankly on the ground, like empty husks without souls. The Golden Crow Saint Sovereign was dead. Now that the myriad flames had returned to one, the two of them were little more than useless shells. The Hua Heavenly Clan had been completely annihilated, and even the Lotus Pathway was gone. A mighty superpower that had stood for 1,000,000 years had vanished overnight. Someone looked up at the pale light of dawn breaking through the sky and muttered, "The heavens have changed." The fall of the Hua Heavenly Clan meant the God-fiend Abyss Heaven would soon descend into chaos. With the demonic hierarchy in ruins, every faction would seize the chance to fight for land and resources. At that moment, Paimon and his companions surrounded Ancient Void and the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign. "What do you intend to do?" Ancient Void asked through clenched teeth. "What do you think?" Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. "I'm curious, though, at a time like this, why hasn't your heavenly court made a move yet? If you release me now, there's still a path to survival," Ancient Void said firmly. "Otherwise, you're dead for sure." "I can release you," Su Zimo said with a grin. "All you have to do is kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Then I might consider it." "Dream on," Ancient Void sneered, his face dark. But before he could say more, the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign suddenly dropped to his knees. "Infernal Lord, it's all my fault. I was blinded and deceived by these petty men. Please spare my life. I'll do anything you ask." At that point, the Demon Sovereign no longer cared about pride or dignity. Men like him feared only one thing, death. Everything else could be cast aside. Face, honor, name. But not life. After all, he was a Saint Sovereign. He had spent a lifetime clawing his way to that level. How could he accept dying like this? "I told him to kneel," Su Zimo said coldly, glancing at the Demon Sovereign. "Who do you think you are? You call yourself a Demon Sovereign? Pathetic." He had demanded Ancient Void kneel because he represented the Heavenly Court, a symbol of their divine authority. The Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign, on the other hand, was just an old patriarch who had founded his own sect, one that had been crushed by the Radiant Court and sent fleeing like a beaten dog. "I'm not worthy of the title Demon Sovereign. I'll change my name right now, whatever you say. I'll do it. I'll become Dog Sovereign," the Demon Sovereign kept pleading. Su Zimo ignored him. Ancient Void, by contrast, was a man of iron will. Even facing death, he would not bow. Su Zimo looked up at the skies and murmured, "You're really good at holding your patience, aren't you?" Then his eyes hardened. "At noon today, execute the two of them here in the Lotus Pathway." "Yes, my lord," Paimon and the others answered, immediately sealing their meridians before the prisoners could resist. They bound both men and dragged them to the central plaza of the shattered Lotus Pathway. The surviving residents, realizing they were no longer in danger after the Five Elements God Lotus's destruction, had not fled. Hearing that 4 Saint Sovereigns were to be executed, they all gathered around to watch. "I want to see how long you can keep hiding," Su Zimo said coldly to the sky. The blazing sun poured over the ruins of the Lotus Pathway. All around, the residents whispered among themselves. Ancient Void, the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign, the Hell Sovereign, and the Alchemy Sovereign were all bound in the center. For infernal archons stood over them, long blades in hand, demonic aura surging. Su Zimo stood at the front. Beside him were the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign and Moonlight Fairy, who had already returned after killing the Vermilion Bird Saint Sovereign and the 2 Hua Elders. Those battles had been even matched at first, but once the Hua Heavenly Clan had been destroyed, the enemy had lost their will to fight. Against cultivators of that caliber, a single distraction was fatal. Su Zimo looked up at the blazing sun and commanded, "Execute them." Of the 4 captives, only the Burning Heaven Demon Sovereign continued to beg for mercy. The other 3 stayed silent. At Su Zimo's order, Paimon and the others swung their blades down. Even if their heads were severed, men like Ancient Void would not truly die, not unless their true fate cores were shattered. A Saint Sovereign could not be killed so easily. Even if their destiny was broken, they could still reincarnate through the life-death soul. Su Zimo knew this. He didn't intend to destroy their fate cores. Killing them outright would be less useful than imprisoning them. Severing their heads was merely a message, a slap to the face of the heavenly court, meant to drag them out into the open. As the 4 demonic blades fell in unison, the once calm air suddenly trembled. "Stop!" A vast, commanding voice resounded from every direction, like divine thunder shaking the heavens. The sound carried such authority that many of the onlookers felt their scalps prickle. Without realizing it, they dropped to their knees, overcome by awe. Su Zimo raised his gaze. The sky above had split open to reveal a grand celestial temple, ancient yet magnificent, shrouded in ethereal light. Around it towered ancient trees reaching to the heavens. Multicolored radiance burst upward like pillars, flowing across the sky like a galaxy. God-beasts roamed through the light, true phoenixes soared through the air, while 7-colored mountain and river birds illuminated half the world, their wings painting a cycle of sun, moon, and stars that stretched into eternity. What is that place? It's so beautiful. Could that be the heavenly court, the realm where the immortals dwell? The kneeling residents stared, entranced, unable to look away, as if lost within the temple's splendor. The voice that had spoken belonged to an elderly man standing before the great hall. He looked every bit the immortal, robed in white, hair silvered at the temples, his bearing serene and dignified. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying a power that shook the heart. In his hand was a golden decree. "By command of the immortal Lord," the elder proclaimed, "the remnants of the ancient demon race shall release the members of the heavenly court at once. Submit and repent, and in light of heaven's virtue of mercy, your punishment may yet be lessened. Persist in rebellion, and heaven itself will condemn you." His words rang out like iron and thunder, proud, absolute, and utterly detached, as if the heavenly court alone ruled all things beneath the heavens. "You think your heavenly court's words mean anything to me?" Su Zimo said with a laugh. "Infernal Lord," the elder replied coldly, "do you really think we delayed our hand for no reason?" He waved his arm, and in that instant an ancient formation ignited across the sky. The entire world seemed to tremble under its weight. "The Sky Shroud Grand Formation," the elder said calmly. "Infernal Lord, under this formation, you will never escape." No one knew the true level of that formation, but unless an infinite Tao powerhouse intervened, there would be no breaking it. The formation was terrifyingly powerful. Though called the Sky Shroud Formation, it was more like a heaven-locking one, sealing off the very heavens and earth above the ruined lotus pathway. Nothing short of an infinite Tao cultivator could break it. That was how overbearing it was. The heavenly court had delayed its appearance precisely to set up this formation. They needed absolute certainty, no more chances for the infernal lord to escape from their grasp. Too many such incidents had already tarnished their prestige, and that was something the heavenly court could never permit. "Holy Elder, save me!" Ancient Void cried out to the old man holding the golden decree high above the clouds. Though he had boasted that he would rather die than bow, no one truly wished to die. "Infernal Lord, have you reconsidered?" The Holy Elder's majestic voice rolled across the sky again. "Execute them," Su Zimo replied calmly, ignoring him. Paimon and the others brought down their demonic blades with a thunderous crash. From the heavens came a deafening rumble, as if some divine being had truly grown enraged. Yet Paimon's group did not stop. For severed heads hit the ground, eyes still wide open. The Holy Elder's body blazed with divine might, his aura sweeping across the land like a heavenly storm. Though he was himself a sage monarch, within this formation he could merge with heaven and earth. Here he was the true sovereign, the ruler of all within this domain. He raised his right hand. A pillar of lightning, hundreds of meters thick, surged down like a celestial flood towards Su Zimo. Thunder detonated violently, the air splitting with crackling explosions. Su Zimo could feel it. That single strike already surpassed the level of an ordinary sage monarch. He retreated swiftly, but even so, the residual force hurled him backward. His robe was torn and scorched in several places. "My lord, let us combine our strength and try to break this formation," Paimon said grimly. "No need." Suzumo shook his head. "This battle isn't ours to fight." Paimon and the others exchanged confused looks. "What does my lord mean?" Suzumo smiled faintly and raised his voice toward the heavens. "How long are you of the Radiant Court going to sit and watch?" "The Radiant Court?" The crowd stiffened. Even the Heavenly Court's people paled slightly. They had not accounted for the Radiant Court's involvement before coming. Though they had promised the Hua Heavenly Clan that, after eradicating the ancient demon race, the Heavenly Court would help them withstand pressure from the Radiant Court, the truth was different. In the Heavenly Court's eyes, the Hua Heavenly Clan was nothing but a pawn. They would never truly go to war with the Radiant Court, not yet, at least. Thus, until now, the two great powers had rarely clashed directly. But Suzumo's call seemed to stir a response. At the edge of the sky, apart from the holy temple's glow, a blazing light suddenly erupted. Golden radiance poured down like a true sun descending, flooding the heavens and earth with its brilliance and heat. From within the void, an actual sun rose, and unlike the ethereal world of the holy temple, this radiant court truly resided within a living sun. It said, came the voice of the violet mist Saint Sovereign, that before an ancient world perished, the radiant court's overlord seized its dying sun. He poured countless resources into restoring it, then relocated the entire temple into that sun. Though the violet mist Saint Sovereign didn't know many details, the event had once shaken all 9 heavens, and every great cultivator had heard of it. That sun might have been damaged, its former power diminished, but it was still the sun, radiance without end, fire without limit. From within it came a hearty laugh. "Holy Elder, it's been a long time." The speaker stepped forth, a middle-aged man in a golden robe, exuding the commanding aura of a ruler. Under the blazing light, his robe gleamed so brightly it was almost hard to look at, and his golden eyes shone like twin suns. "That's the master of the Light God Temple, one of the 7 branches under the Radiant Court." The woman known as the Inferno Crucible Envoy explained softly. The Radiant Court was a vast organization, composed of 7 great subsidiary divisions, and the Light God Temple was one of them. Clearly, the Radiant Court took this matter seriously. They had sent a branch master himself. "So, it's the Light Lord Sage Monarch," the Holy Elder said coldly. "To what do we owe the pleasure of the Radiant Court's presence?" "The Hua Heavenly Clan was one of our Radiant Court's subordinate forces," the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a faint smile. "Naturally, we had to come see what's become of them. Besides," his gaze shifted slightly, "our temple Saintess is here." "Saintess?" The crowd murmured in surprise, turning their eyes toward the Inferno Crucible Envoy. Even Suzumo was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected that the Radiant Court would send its own Saintess to serve as the Inferno Crucible Envoy. "My name is Murong Qing," the woman said, meeting Suzumo's gaze and finally revealing her identity. "Heh, no wonder you were so sure the Radiant Court would appear," Suzumo said, understanding now. With their Saintess here, of course they wouldn't remain silent. "Light Lord Sage Monarch," the Holy Elder said, "the Heavenly Court came only to slay ancient demons. Once the task is done, we will leave, your Saintess will not be harmed. Your battle with the ancient demons is none of our concern," the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied lightly. "But this land belongs to the Radiant Court. You can't fight here. Take your war outside if you must." "Are you trying to shield the demons?" the Holy Elder asked icily. "That accusation is far too heavy." The Sage Monarch shook his head. "I've already said you may do as you wish elsewhere, but not on the Radiant Court's ground. And if we insist on killing him here?" The Holy Elder narrowed his eyes. "Then I, unworthy as I am willing to exchange a few blows with you," the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied evenly. "Very well," the Holy Elder sneered. "But if you wish to fight me, you'll have to break my Sky Shroud formation first." "A formation as vast and mighty as this?" the Light Lord Sage Monarch chuckled. I fear I'm not its equal, so instead, I'll borrow something. Bring forth the primordial relic. At his command, the ancient blazing sun above blazed even brighter, flooding God-fiend abyss heaven with the brilliance of 1,000 suns. From within that radiance drifted out a massive meteorite, glowing like a star. As it appeared, waves of Tao rippled through the void. Layers of Tao rhythm rolled outward as though they would pierce the heavens themselves. The meteorite shimmered with 7-colored starlight, and upon its surface, flowers of the grand Tao blossomed, proof of its extraordinary power. This is the Leviathan God wind-striking stone, said the Light Lord Sage Monarch with a smile. Let's see if it can break your formation. Within the stone, the phantom of a Leviathan constantly darted about, as though an inner world was alive within it. A fine stone indeed, the Holy Elder said coldly. The god-beast Leviathan once transcended its tribulation upon that very rock, bathing it in the calamity of heaven and earth. Later, even an infinite Tao being blessed it himself. Su Zimo looked at the stone and said slowly, and the imprint carved by that infinite Tao cultivator isn't an ordinary one. It's an attack sigil. A single strike from this stone would carry the full power of an infinite Tao cultivator. Sharp eyes, the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied with a smile. Indeed, this divine stone was personally inscribed by our ancestor. He turned his gaze toward the Holy Elder. Will you withdraw your formation yourself, or shall I break it for you? Light Lord Sage Monarch, you're going too far, the Holy Elder said softly, his eyes narrowing. The Light Lord Sage Monarch gave a cold snort. Since their masks were off, there was nothing more to be said. The Radiant Court's intervention was not just to save their Saintess. The passage managed by the Hua Heavenly Clan was a vital choke point in the Inferno Crucible Heaven. The Heavenly Court's interference there had already overstepped its bounds, provoking serious outrage among the Radiant Court's higher ranks. The Light Lord Sage Monarch waved his hand. Endless radiance surged outward. The Leviathan God wind-striking stone echoed with the resonance of the Grand Tao, and faintly, a vast Leviathan could be seen soaring against the wind. The great Leviathan rises with the wind, soaring 90 million miles in a single sweep. Now, the Leviathan carried that very same momentum, soaring skyward, piercing through the firmament. With a piercing cry that shook heaven and earth, it dove down, empowered by the strength of an infinite Tao cultivator. Facing the unstoppable assault, the Holy Elder did not panic. He pressed his palms together and began chanting under his breath. Countless runes burst from his hands, merging into the Sky Shroud formation. In an instant, the formation blazed to life, its power magnified 1,000,000-fold. When the Leviathan finally collided with it, the world exploded with a sound that deafened all creation. Those of lesser cultivation screamed, eardrums burst, blood streaming from their 7 orifices. Even those of higher cultivation had to shut off their hearing to avoid the overwhelming shockwaves. The sky was riddled with countless cracks, spreading like shattered glass. Then came the echoing crack, crack, and the heavens themselves seemed to collapse. A storm of chaotic void winds swept across the world. At the center of the maelstrom, the enormous Leviathan struggled wildly. Before it, a translucent barrier, the shield of the Sky Shroud formation, held fast. The two forces were locked in deadlock. The formation drew upon the power of heaven and earth, trying to resist the Leviathan's advance. But after a long struggle, it was clear the formation was losing ground. Had this been an ordinary Leviathan, the formation would have endured. But this one bore the blessing of an infinite Tao powerhouse. The Leviathan's divine power surged, its massive body roaring. With a thunderous boom, the barrier of the Sky Shroud formation began to crack apart, like flawless glass splintering into countless fractures. The Holy Elder's expression darkened. His immortal energy flared violently, and more runes poured forth, but it was useless. The entire formation shattered like a dam bursting under a flood. The torrent of divine power swept through everything, unstoppable. When the Sky Shroud formation finally broke, the Leviathan God wind-striking stone retreated once more into the sun. How does it look now, Holy Elder? The Light Lord Sage Monarch asked with a faint smile. Having your ancestor interfere like this is against the rules, isn't it? The Holy Elder said coldly. When the formation collapsed, the Holy Elder's blood and essence had surged violently inside him. Though he forced it down, his expression was grim. The Radiant Court had truly overstepped this time. Their ancestor, known as Primordial Flame, was an infinite Tao existence. Of course, the Heavenly Court was not without infinite Tao cultivators of its own. Across the 9 heavens, there were only a handful of such beings. They were exceedingly rare, not because they didn't exist, but because they were far removed from the affairs of the mortal world. First, infinite Tao cultivators spent most of their time in seclusion, seeking enlightenment and attempting to break through the 12 meridian gates of the Grand Tao. They seldom interfered with worldly matters. Second, their sheer power was too great. A single move from an infinite Tao cultivator could destroy suns and stars and change the course of the 9 heavens themselves. So while there was no written rule, it was understood by all, infinite Tao cultivators did not participate in worldly battles. You misunderstand, the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied. Our ancestor knows nothing of this. The Leviathan god Wind-Striking Stone was left behind long ago. Your Sky Shroud formation was simply too formidable, and we juniors had no choice but to rely on our forebears' relic. So the Radiant Court truly intends to tear all ties and go to war with the Heavenly Court? The Holy Elder asked again. I believe I've made myself quite clear, the Light Lord Sage Monarch answered. This is Radiant Court territory. Your Heavenly Court has no authority here. Outside our domain, you can turn the heavens upside down if you wish. We won't interfere. Good. Very good. The Holy Elder said sharply, his eyes blazing with fury. Just then, an aged voice resonated across the sky. Light Lord, you should not have come here. The Heavenly Court is determined to execute the Infernal Lord this time. If you interfere, you will die with him. At those words, everyone present trembled inwardly. What an arrogant tone. The Light Lord Sage Monarch was no minor figure. He was a sage monarch who had already opened 3 blossoms, only a single step away from the infinite Tao realm. Though that step might take a lifetime to cross, it still represented immense power. Everyone turned toward the holy temple, wanting to see who dared speak so boldly. And then, high above, a solitary figure appeared. It was a monk, calm and composed, dressed in a plain gray robe. Around his neck hung a string of crimson prayer beads that exuded a faint scent of blood. On closer inspection, each bead shimmered faintly, containing within it the power of the Grand Tao itself. Who is that? Someone in the ruins of the Lotus Pathway murmured. No idea. Never seen him before. While others were puzzled, the Light Lord Sage Monarch's gaze turned deep. The Sky Burial Buddha. Who is that? Su Zimo asked, puzzled. You've never heard of him? Morong Qing said, clearly surprised. He's the legendary Invincible Sage Monarch. Invincible Sage Monarch? Su Zimo chuckled. I haven't heard the word, invincible, in a long time. He's a figure from the ancient era, Morong Qing explained. It's said he once challenged 1,000 saint sovereigns, all of them invincible sage monarchs, and won every single battle, never defeated once. That's how he earned the title of Invincible Sage Monarch. After the ancient era, he disappeared without a trace. I didn't expect someone like him to join the Heavenly Court. Someone of that level shouldn't be the type to let himself be restrained, she added, frowning slightly. Su Zimo smiled. That's not so strange. What if the Heavenly Court promised to help him ascend to infinite Tao? Morong Qing's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Even the Heavenly Court only has a few infinite Tao cultivators. The Heavenly Court alone can't, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. But the power behind the Heavenly Court could. He stopped there, saying no more.